A boy shouts that he did it, and on the game screen a congratulations message appears because he completed the level. Very excited, the boy shouts that he beat that game and that all of it is real. He celebrates that he finally finished that game, and in a chat people celebrate with him, saying it's amazing and that he was the first to succeed. It's the classic game known for its difficulty level, Defend the Empire, and someone finally managed to beat the game 10 years after its release. And that someone is our MC, who starts talking to the streaming camera, that it doesn't matter how hard the game is because he was born to beat them all. He speaks in front of a webcam and is a streamer gamer who only plays classic games with high difficulty levels. In fact, that's his username. The boy thanks user Fox for the donation of 300,000 won and thanks everyone present excitedly. He's the first to finish a level that no one in the world had managed since the game's release 10 years ago, and the boy jokes, saying he has amazing skills. There's no better compliment for a gamer. Suddenly, a message arrives. A user named Sangi says he's very sad that the saint died in the end. She carried the game very well for an R-rank character. The MC goes silent. He thinks his viewers got attached to the characters because they hope each of them survives, but they all die except for the protagonist, Lucas. The boy thinks his goal was just to finish the game, not to keep everyone alive. With the defeat of the final boss, the game comes to an end and it announces that he is the #1 player in the world ranking. Even with all that, Lucas remains there in front of the boss and near a mountain of bodies of allies and enemies. The boy stays quiet for a moment and asks himself why. Even if it's just a character in a game, he feels sad seeing Lucas walk away. The game ends and the credits roll. Something about it makes him feel sad. A message arrives. A user says that the game creator should give him a prize. The boy asks why, and another says he just proved he could beat that game. He laughs and questions why the game developers would do that. Besides, he's happy with the good moments they shared, but everyone says he would be happy with it. Shy, the boy says that's not true. He thinks the game developers abandoned their official pages years ago. They haven't even released another game in the last 10 years, and there's no chance they get in touch with the boy. Suddenly, a message arrives. It's from director Mr. A saying hello to the gamer and introducing himself as the director of Defend the Empire. Our MC is startled. Everyone in the chat is shocked and questions if it's real. The next message appears saying he had already given up and didn't think anyone would be able to beat that game. The boy doesn't know how to react and wonders if it's real. Then Mr. A says he's relieved that the boy succeeded and sincerely thanks him, but the boy says there's no need to thank him. Mr. A sends a message saying he's happy that there's still hope, and the MC wonders if he's working on a sequel to that game. One last message appears saying that the boy has proven to be qualified and capable, so he should join them. He wonders if it's just a guy trying to get attention, and what are the chances the game director is watching his stream? He should just dismiss him. Smiling, the boy calls out to the self-proclaimed Mr. Director. Suddenly, something strange starts happening. He says he's going to make it clear, but everything starts shaking. He gets confused and wonders what's going on. The boy falls to the ground and thinks maybe he played too long that day. Everything becomes blurry and he thinks his viewers will probably call an ambulance for him. On the computer monitor, a thank you message appears for playing Defend the Empire. Magical things happen, and huge explosions emerge. Our hero suddenly wakes up. He screams as he gets up, then notices everything is strange and wonders what all that noise is. Several explosions are happening. The boy screams again and asks what the hell that is. Rocks are falling everywhere. He supports himself on the ground, then stands up with difficulty. Looking closely, he sees a cannon and covers his nose because of the smell of gunpowder. A flame is lit, and another cannon fires. The boy falls to the ground, startled. He is speechless, and the explosions continue. Turning around, he swears and tells them to slow down with that. Then he gets scared. There is a huge flag flying, and a massive army ready for battle. There are explosions everywhere and many knights using cannons. Very confused, our hero is speechless. The MC wonders what the hell is happening there. Several knights use their crossbows to attack. They fight with spears too. He wonders if that is a war. A knight notices his presence and shouts at him, calling him his highness, leaving him confused. The man approaches and asks, shouting if he is okay. The boy is startled and thinks that man is an enemy, so he throws himself to the ground and yells at him to stay away and not to come any closer. Suddenly, the knight starts trembling, leaving the MC confused. He drops his sword and kneels, apologizing to his highness, while begging the boy to spare him and crying a lot. The boy wonders what's wrong there. Then he stands up. He tries to talk to the knight, but as he tells the man to pull himself together, an attack flies in his direction. He gets scared, but it's too late. The explosion happens right before his eyes, launching him far away. He hits the ground and trembles, but manages to get up. Panting, he wonders what that was and if it was a bomb. A green light shines. A roar echoes and a green slime consumes several knights. The MC is terrified. A man shouts, "That's over there," and tells the infantry to advance in that direction while pointing, leaving the boy even more frightened. Then he sees all the knights approaching the parapet of the wall to stop the enemies. They use their swords to attack, but something scares one of them. A huge black spike pierces his chest. Our hero watches everything in shock. The man's body is lifted into the air, making the glove from his armor fall rolling and stop in front of the boy. The blood splashes onto his face. Seeing that torn-off hand, he is terrified. Other knights are hit. Then the MC wonders if all that is happening on the other side of the wall. A creature appears. It looks like a giant spider. It is right in front of the boy, and its red eyes glow. Seeing the boy, it lets out a high-pitched noise. Our hero covers his ears, wondering if that monster is a spider. The knights charge at it. One of them yells for them to stop the enemy, but with a quick move, he is sliced in half. Seeing all that, the MC starts trembling. He can't move his body, and the monster is approaching, stepping over the corpses. The boy wonders if this is a dream or a hallucination, but the spider is very close and none of it makes any sense. This must be a joke. A spider raises its claw to attack and brings it down straight toward the boy. He prepares for the end and wonders if he's really going to die that way. Someone calls out to His Highness. It's a blonde boy. He draws his sword and asks if the boy is really giving up. With a swift movement, he readies the sword. His eye glows blue and uses a powerful strike to hit the monster. The spider is split in two. Standing before our hero is a powerful blonde knight. He smiles at the boy and asks if his reaction isn't a bit cold. The MC is confused. Then the blonde boy is startled and asks His Highness what happened. Shouting, he asks if the boy is hurt, while our hero reflects that the blonde guy looks very familiar. Then he remembers the protagonist of the game. Also shouting, he asks if the knight's name is Lucas. With tears in his eyes, the man says he knew this had happened, and says the boy hit his head. Then Lucas grabs the boy and says he's happy because he called him by his name. He had never remembered his name, even though he worked as his bodyguard. The boy is astonished, and Lucas seems confused. Our hero wonders if that really is Lucas. Suddenly, he realizes what's going on. He looks ahead, beyond the wall, beyond the castle. He is inside the game Defend the Empire. Tense, he starts trembling. That is the hardest game to beat, the one he had just finished. That is a terrifyingly difficult defense game, where he had to block a bunch of monsters. They are advancing in his direction. The MC wonders why. The monsters keep attacking the wall. They hit buildings and cause explosions. The boy is hit by the impact. He doesn't know what he's doing inside that game. Someone yells for His Highness. It's Lucas. He places his hands on the boy's shoulders and says the enemy is approaching. It's the Black Spider Army. That forward base might break and collapse, but those creatures go inactive when the sun rises. There are only 30 minutes left until sunrise. Lucas draws his sword. He stands in front of our hero, protecting him. Then he tells the MC to hold his position a little longer. The boy wonders why Lucas is trying to protect him. Also, why do they call him His Highness? Who is he supposed to be in that scenario? Whirlwinds form, taking the spiders away. Several knights are injured. They start checking who is alive and who isn't. Lucas says the sun is starting to rise, and that's why the spiders are gone. Then he calls for His Highness. The boy is speechless with a vacant look. He is seeing the bodies of those spiders pile up down below the wall, and he calls for Lucas, who answers him immediately. He asks what the date is and where they are. Lucas replies that it's the last day of February and it's the year 649 of the Imperial Power. That is the forward base in a fortified city called Crossroads. Seriously, the MC says that means the next day will be the 1st of March, and Lucas confirms. That date is familiar to him, and so is the location. That's because that day and place represent where he played the tutorial, which he had planned to go through hundreds of times over a year and a half. That means he is Ash. Lucas is confused. The MC shouts that his name is Ash, the Born-Hated. Lucas confirms, and the boy wonders why it had to be that bastard. Ash is the third prince of the Empire. He is psychotic. As the worst commander of all, he annihilated the main forces in the fortified city. Besides that, he's the character who suffers the worst death in the tutorial. Desperate, the boy wonders why it had to be this character. Meanwhile, in the commander's bunkers, Ash looks at himself in the mirror and shouts that he's a foolish idiot. He should have stayed in the fortified city, then asks what he's doing there. He scratches his head, confused, and says this must be a joke. That's the classic game Defend the Empire. It's very famous thanks to its extremely high difficulty level. Because of that difficulty, it's known as Hell Level, and in Ironman mode, your progress is saved by force. As a result, the game's difficulty level is called Hell Ironman. He's the only person who has ever managed to beat that level. It didn't matter where in the game he was, he always knew he would find his way. Except for this part of the tutorial, Ash calls out for the system window, thinking there's no way to beat that stage. The tutorial was created so no one could win, because the game's story starts with the monsters invading, and Lucas is the only one who escapes. In the timeline, that takes a total of 3 years, and it takes 2.5 years to hunt down the Black Spider Army. So how is he supposed to defeat hundreds of them there? Ash tries to compose himself and remember that he's a classic gamer. He already beat that game once. If he focuses on his knowledge and experience, he might find a way. Or not. Ash starts laughing and concludes that he's doomed. The system shows the enemy's levels, all over 50, and there are more than 1,000 of them to defeat. Besides that, the wall's durability is terrible. Ash wonders what he's supposed to do if that cannon is the only useful weapon he has. It's practically impossible to win at that point. He needs to find a way to improve his skills. The boy tries to stay calm. If he plans to use Iron Man mode, he won't be able to use save or load as a tactic anymore, so everything will be lost if he makes a mistake. That's why he's looking for the best method to get out of there. He knows the game very well after playing it for 6 months. There is always a way to survive, no matter the circumstances. He looks for something with more power, something more foolproof. Then something catches his attention. It's exactly what he was looking for. Ash calls for Lucas, kicking the door. He asks where Lucas is, and the knight replies and asks what happened. Ash yells for him to gather his direct team immediately. Lucas asks if he's talking about calling reinforcements, and comments that the boy hadn't called them even once until that moment, but Ash shouts at him to stop the blah 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 and call reinforcements already. Ash points his finger in Lucas's face, and yells that he's figured out a way to escape from that. A hand pulls a chair. The boy leans against the wall and says that finally everyone is there. There with him are about 3 people besides Lucas. All of them have faces Ash recognizes. Lily, Ken, and maybe Damien. Of course he recognizes them. He watched them die over and over again. Ash asks why Damien is like that on the ground. The boy doesn't stop crying. Lily comments, disheartened that he lost a friend of his that day. Ash reflects that's just how it goes in the tutorial. Damien has a bad status from the start, so he always dies first. Even though he's a good healer, Ash was never able to make use of his abilities. Ash begins speaking to everyone and says that first he's going to explain the roles they will take in the battle the next day. He calls Lily and says she's a mage who can launch powerful flame attacks, the one who causes the most damage among them all. She will be the shield like a tank and will be in charge of defending against the spider attacks. Lily starts apologizing and asks why he's doing this to her. Ash continues and speaks with Ken. He's a defense mag who's always on the front line. He uses the battlefield to attack and distract enemies. He will invade the middle of the enemy's formation, causing confusion. Ken gets tense. Ash speaks with Damien. He's a healer, so he's the most necessary in that team. From now on, he'll be the sniper of the team. He must hit the enemies. Finally, Ash speaks with Lucas and says he's in charge of commanding the other soldiers and maintaining the front line. Everyone goes silent. Ash wonders why they don't say anything. Ken starts shaking badly. He punches the wall and yells, asking if Ash calls that a strategy, and if His Highness is serious. He's leading them to death with his orders, so he shouldn't ask them to do something like that. The boy goes silent for a moment and thinks that's not him. It was the Ash from the game, a monster. But he must have sounded crazy saying all that. But clearing that place is impossible using traditional methods, so he has no choice but to act like a madman to clean it up. Ash says Ken's name and thinks he can't back down no matter what. Then he says he's not just the Emperor's son. He's the commander-in-chief there, and asks if Ken is going to disobey his orders. Everyone becomes tense and lowers their heads. Ken trembles, scared, and tries to say something to Ash, but the boy makes a crazy psychotic face. If he loses his position as leader, everything will fall apart. Ash starts walking. He goes toward Lily. His plan is reckless and ridiculous. The boy draws his dagger. He needs to shut them up and make them do what he says. So he strikes Lily. Everyone is terrified and frozen. Lily trembles and doesn't understand what happened as the blade is stuck in her shoulder. She screams in pain. Ash says they all have burdens to carry with their duties. Since he's in the body of a lunatic, he decided to act accordingly. Ash has a dagger stuck in Lily's shoulder. Ken watches and thinks the prince is completely out of his mind. He seems unaware of how much mages contribute to military power. How can they trust a guy like him and go into battle? The spot where Ash struck begins to burn. A huge flame forms on Lily's shoulder. Everyone is startled, not knowing what's going on. Smiling, Ash says that's what he was talking about. The boy doesn't know if the developer added that as a joke. But in the tutorial, each character has a hidden ability completely opposite to their roles. Ash asks if Lily wasn't cut by a blade when she was a child when goblins attacked her village. It was at that moment that she acquired what's called flaming skin. Flaming skin is born from extreme fear of blades. It transforms part of the body into flames, allowing evasion from physical attacks. It consumes MP whenever used. He looks at Lily and asks if he's wrong. She has tears in her eyes. There was no way to use a hidden ability within main damage while playing, but this is real life, so he can use that ability to his advantage. If that level is impossible to overcome, he'll just have to find a way. It doesn't matter which idiot threw him in there, he's going to clear that bizarre and stupid game once and for all. Then he'll make the one responsible regret it with his own hands. He pulls the dagger out of Lily and apologizes for using a cruel method to prove his point. Lily says it's okay and asks how he knew about that, but Ash changes the subject. He turns around and speaks to Ken, who panics. Ash says he used to be a thief when he was a child. He has a big family to support and worked very hard to become a knight. The man asks how Ash knows all of that. Smiling, the boy says that's not the point. What matters is what the man can do. The little thief's path ability allows him to mask his presence and escape from others, but it consumes a lot of HP every time it's used. Ash says he has the ability to hide, and Ken starts to sweat. Then he tells the man to say something if he doesn't want Ash to go there and test it in practice again. Bowing to Ash, Ken says it's not necessary and that he really does have that ability, That means he can do what the boy asked before. Ash places the dagger on the table and begins to say something. He calls for Damien and approaches. Ash thinks the boy is the most important part of that mission. He crouches and tells Damien he has excellent vision. That's why he must clearly remember how his friend died. Damien lowers his head without reacting. He was a childhood friend. They grew up in the same orphanage. He ended up dying because he went to the battlefield in his place. Crying a lot, the healer asks why His Highness called them there that night, and if he has some kind of noble goal, or if he's just using their lives for pure fun. He tells Ash to get his friend back, and shouts for him to bring Van back. A flower grows beside the wall. Ash holds Damien's shoulder, and says the boy can be angry at him and even despise him if needed. But his friend Van sacrificed his life to save the boys, and now he's just sitting there, waiting to die. Ash asks if he's really going to throw away the life his friend gave him because a commander put him face to face with death, and says Damien needs to fight back. He grips the boy's shoulders and says he needs to seek revenge. Then he must annihilate those spiders and get out of there alive. After that, he can bother Ash all he wants. Ash asks if Damien wants to take down those damn spiders, and the healer says yes. Seriously, Ash asks if the healer also wants to take him down. Damien stays silent for a moment and says yes. Everyone gets nervous at the boy's response. Ash smiles and says that's good, and promises that if they get out of this alive, he will perish in his arms when the time comes. Lucas yells at him, but Ash signals for him to stop, and says that if the mission fails, they'll all lose their lives anyway, and even then, he'll die by his hands. He swears it in the name of his family's honor, but he asks Damien to follow his command. Even if it's just for the next day, Ash knows he has to use that hatred as fuel if necessary. Damien nods. Ash must take advantage even when the hatred is directed at him. Seriously, he says he won't accept excuses. His worst mistake was putting the army on the brink of annihilation. But if the plan works, they'll get rid of those spiders. Even if small, there's a chance of winning, so they'll have to trust him. Just this once. Now his guard is complete. The four of them face Ash. Even if it's a real royal guard or a losing squad, he has to go all in. Someone shouts that the spider army is approaching. A knight asks if Ash is sure about what he's saying, and the boy tells them not to worry and to follow orders. The spiders approach at high speed, but the plan is simple. While the team buys a bit of time, he needs to find the queen who's giving orders to the other spiders. After that, he just needs to take her out with a mana cannon. He's going to release the mana with full power from the cannon, breaking its regulator. He knows not even the queen will be able to handle that. The problem will be finding the queen's location. She's probably hidden somewhere that can't be seen with the naked eye. Ash wonders if he's going to be able to do this, but he plans to use mapping. Ash uses his mapping ability. With it, he maps everything: the battlefield, the forest, and its small animals. With his mapping ability, he can observe the entire area in a mini-map. At first, he was surprised at how ridiculous his status is, but at least he still has one ability. Now he needs to figure out where the hell the Spider Queen is hiding. Something catches his attention. There are no boss markers there. He can't find the enemy queen on the map. The gates open in front of Ken. Before he left, Ash gave him stamina potions. Ken's duty is to go to the battlefield and distract the spiders. Ash asked him if he'd be able to do it. The structure of the walls and ceiling trembles. Hidden, Lily is terrified. Ash gave her a difficult job. If the spiders invade the fort, she must block the entrance with her firepower. Lucas shouts for the knights to take their formations. The men begin preparing their crossbows and cannons. The spider army approaches and Lucas draws his sword. Then he shouts for everyone to protect their home. They must buy time for His Highness to find the queen. Lucas looks at Ash and concludes he's ready to begin. Then he raises his sword, but Ash is tense because his map isn't working as expected. Everyone starts attacking the spiders. Several explosions occur and many of them die. Lucas gives Ash a thumbs up, but he says nothing in return. He thinks he needs to calm down. Defeating the boss isn't the final objective of the tutorial anyway. He was just shocked that the boss marker didn't appear. Even during the attack, she must be hiding somewhere. A safe place in the back along with guards as a precaution. There's no place here where the queen could be, so Ash yells for Damien. The boy points into the distance and asks if the healer can see it. He's pointing at an empty area, but Damien sees spiders that aren't moving. Ash says the queen must be there and asks if the healer can find her. He narrows his eyes and asks if Ash is referring to a monster with a spider's body and a woman's head. Ash gets excited. That's the one. Damien comments that she looks scary, but Ash tells him to relax because she'll be annihilated quickly. They turn the cannon in the right direction. A knight says the mana shell is charged and they can fire whenever the boy is ready. Ash asks Damien to aim. The boy gets nervous and starts trembling, and says he doesn't know if he can do it because he's never done this before and the request came very suddenly. Ash begins to speak, and says it's okay if he misses. He's decided to take responsibility for everything. Even if he fails and ruins everything, it's okay. He'll bear the blame. What happens is always the commander's responsibility. The soldiers only follow orders. Ash says the only thing Damien has to do is pull the trigger. That's how they're going to defeat Van's enemy. Damien gets motivated and his long-range vision ability is activated. He pulls the lever. The mana cannonball starts moving. The gears turn. and Ash is happy. A shot is finally fired toward the target. It emits a massive sound along with light and wind as it passes. It flies quickly in the direction it was launched. Ash shouts for the cannonball to take down the Spider Queen. A huge explosion happens on the horizon. Ash asks one of the knights to look through binoculars. He shouts that they hit the target. The shot landed right in the middle of the monsters. The men praise Damien and asking if he's sure that was his first time. The little boy gets shy and says he just followed His Highness's instructions. After he pulled the trigger, everything happened very naturally. Ash wonders what the boy is talking about. It was all thanks to his long-range vision ability, which allows him to see everything and hit any target. It seems like a coding flaw. In the game, he was the character who could never hold a weapon, but now that's no longer a problem, and his strategy worked. He's an incredible leader. Looking out to the front of the wall, Ash gets confused. The spiders are still moving. A knight says the enemies are advancing. Ash asks what he's talking about. A swarm of spiders is arriving. They're starting to move. Ash looks at where the man pointed. Something strange is happening. The Spider Queen is moving toward them with her spiders, and she seems to have a shield. She is furious. Ash is startled. All the spiders turn toward the queen. The boy wonders where they're going. They ask Ash if he didn't hit the queen and why she's still perfectly fine. Nervously, the boy asks them to wait while he thinks for a moment. The knight yells that they're in trouble. The spiders are swarming toward the fort. Ash complains and sarcastically says he gave excellent orders to his subordinates. From inside the wall, they continue launching bombs and trying to defend themselves. Ken is exhausted. Only one stamina potion is left. He's crouched behind a tree and wonders if he should run away. A crash happens. Quickly, Ken stands up, but everything is empty. He's nervous. A strong wind blows through the forest. Ken supports himself on the ground out of strength. Damien's eyes observe and aim at the Spider Queen. Someone shouts that they hit her. Ash watches tensely, but the army keeps moving. The queen is still alive and well. The boy wonders if they're not using enough power to take her down. For something like the Queen of the Black Spider army, a few explosions should be enough because she's not much stronger than the soldiers. But what is that tutorial queen? There's no information about her. Maybe she isn't even killable. Someone yells for His Highness and says they're reaching the limit because they broke through the regulator of their mana cannon. Their weapon barrels are damaged and they can't use them. Ash is confused and asks how many shots are left. The man says they had a total of 5 shots, so now there are 3 remaining. Ash becomes tense. They need to have hope. Those 3 shots will have to be enough to take down the queen. But there's a problem with Damien's eyes. The use of long-range vision is straining the boy. They have 3 shots left, but can the kid hold out until they're used? Luckily, the central walls are holding up well. Someone yells that the demolishers are approaching. Ash is alarmed. A giant monster approaches. It looks like it's there to smash the wall and bring it down. Ash gets worried because that doesn't happen in the game. So he yells for them to stop the demolisher and focus all attack power on him. The cannons fire and hit the demolisher. But its shell is very strong and gets close to the wall. The walls are going to fall. The demolisher hits it and with a single strike brings down the fort. It opens a huge entrance, and the entire spider army begins to invade. Ash is in despair. Lucas yells for everyone to draw their weapons. They're going down to the ground. The boy shouts to the knights with him to take care because those on the ground won't be able to help them there. They need to stay and try to finish off the queen. Seriously, Ash says they need to annihilate the queen. A knight announces that it's loaded. Ash yells for Damien to shoot. The boy uses his vision ability with great effort and pulls the lever. The queen is hit again, but she doesn't even get a scratch. Furious, Ash yells for them to reload the cannon for another shot. Meanwhile, Lucas fights against the spiders. He annihilates many of them, but they seem endless. Then Lucas yells for them to protect the fort and keep His Highness safe. Ash starts to lose his mind. He doesn't know what to do. His soldiers are trying to hold back the spiders to protect him, but they are too few against too many. They start being wiped out, one by one. The number of dead keeps increasing, and Ash has no idea how to act. He tries to remember when he played. The boy had no idea that this was a place where people actually lived. Death isn't just a number, it's accompanied by terrible screams and a strong stench. Ash closes the status window. A soldier shouts for everyone there to gather. Cooling the cannon must be the priority. Meanwhile, the boy observes that they're going to collapse before even firing the 5 shots. Feet move quickly. They belong to Lucas, who is giving his life for that fight. Ash wonders what to do. He doesn't know how to get through this. Suddenly, Ken appears at the gate and yells at the spiders. He grabs their attention. Ash is shocked. Ken takes his last potion. He is exhausted and shouts that he is Ken, a royal knight of the Empire. Lucas and the others are startled, and the spiders turn toward Ken. The man contains his fear, then starts running, drawing the monsters toward him. He finds a rock and smiles. Quickly, he hides behind the boulder and uses his little thief's survival path ability to blend into the rock and disappear from there. Ash is shocked and yells at Ken that he has no more stamina. Since his health status is insufficient, his ability was deactivated, Ken reappears among the spiders. He says he knew he shouldn't have trusted Ash. With a violent blow, he is annihilated. Ash is left speechless. Ash can hear the horrible sound of destruction meters away. The spiders destroy Ken, tearing him apart. Ash thinks about how that was his fault. He allowed another precious life to be lost. Lucas shouts that Ken pushed the defense line closer to the wall and commands everyone to advance and not let the spiders invade. It's not just Ken. All the soldiers are losing their lives because of his commands. He is to blame for all those deaths. When he was playing, he used to throw his allies as bait whenever needed. That's how the game worked. Instead of saving some or obtaining items or completing submissions, he gladly killed them. And he never questioned any of his actions. But now he realizes the consequences of his decisions. He shouts for the damn spiders to stop and notices how painful those deaths are. Ash screams for the spiders to stop, but they won't stop. Monsters don't stop at the sound of a scream. A sword hits a spider that's in front of Ash. It's Lucas who is protecting him. He asks if His Highness is okay. Ash watches the spider writhing on the ground and says he's fine. There's only one way to stop the monsters. Ash cuts off the spider's head. They need to annihilate all of them before they are annihilated. A knight calls His Highness and says the fourth cannonball is loaded, but it won't reach that far. Ash yells for Damien and asks if he thinks he can fire it. With bleeding eyes, Damien says yes. Then he fires the cannon. Again, it hits the queen, but this time she screams, and everyone around her falls apart. The creature lets out an agonizing scream, and a huge explosion happens. The shot hit right on the queen's head. But even so, that damn queen is still alive and healthy. Ash is terrified. Everyone falls to their knees. Their attacks aren't strong enough. The ammo barrel also seems to have reached its limit. If they try to fire one more time, the cannon will explode. The soldier says it's over and they give up. Ash is gasping. He wonders if this is the end. The cannon is about to explode. Their lines of defense are collapsing, and their shooter can't even open his eyes. Ash lets his arm fall. He's thinking of giving up, but a soldier yells that they managed to cause some damage to the queen. Ash is shocked. The queen lost her armor. The boy tries to speak to the soldier. He dedicated himself to the duty until the end. He shouts that if they hit the queen one more time, they can finish her, but an attack is heading straight at him. Right before Ash's eyes, he is struck. An explosion happens in the tower they are in. Lucas screams for Ash, worried. The tower collapses and Ash falls. Everything collapsed, the entire world and his hope of clearing that level. Everything. Ash sees someone speaking to him through a blur. Then he sees the light and wakes up startled. He is in the middle of rubble and being protected by Lucas. Ash is stunned. Lucas crawled under the debris to keep Ash from getting hurt and ended up badly injured. But he asks if His Highness is okay. Ash shouts that that's the kind of question he should be asking Lucas. The knight is coughing up a lot of blood. Then he asks if Ash remembers something that happened 20 years ago. But he doesn't remember. He's just a player who can't share memories. Lucas says that's what he said when he made him his bodyguard. Ash asks what he said. I may not become king, but I will become the most admirable man in this world. And as his bodyguard, Lucas would become the most admirable knight in the world. Maybe he was a very immature child, but his words really moved Lucas, and he kept them in his heart until that day. Lucas says he believes in Ash, and Ash asks if he really believes under those conditions. Lucas replies, forever. Then the weight of the debris falls on him, and the knight is crushed. The whole tower collapsed. Ash pulls Lucas out from under the wreckage. He hopes the knight can hold on. He's the main character of that game, the savior of that world. He can't die in a place like that. Ash has to find out first what's going on, if they are under artillery, and how long he was unconscious. Then he sees the cannon and the soldiers who were firing it, lying on the ground. Damien is there too. Fortunately, it seems that none of them suffered fatal injuries. But the cannon wasn't so lucky, he needs to think. Why are they still alive and where are the spiders? Lily calls for His Highness. She's standing before him holding off the monsters. He has an idea and says this isn't over yet. Lily holds back the enemies with all her strength. She is wounded and pierced. Ash is shocked and runs toward Lily, but she signals him to stop and says she won't be able to hold the spiders back for long. She might block the entrance for a while, but the Demolisher will break through at any moment. Screaming, Lily says they don't have much time, tells Ash to hurry. She asks him not to let their deaths be in vain. Ash gets nervous and yells at the soldiers to load the cannon with the last bullet. The man tries to argue that the cannon has reached its limit and will explode as soon as it fires. Then Ash says that by that point, they'll be killed by the spiders anyway, so they should take the gamble, roll the dice instead of waiting for the end. The soldier questions how they'll aim if they can't even see the queen. Besides, the cannon's foundation is a mess. Ash tells him to hold it with his own hands. They need to work with what they have. Ash says they won't need to aim because Damien can do it. Then he tells them to load the last bullet into the cannon and says that's an order. He doesn't know how farsight works, but if Damien shoots, it will be more accurate. Damien is his last hope. Ash approaches and calls out to him. The boy looks at him and he says this is the last shot. He just needs to hold on for one more shot. Damien asks what's the point of all this? No matter what he does, nothing will change. Ash says if he hits the target one more time, that monster will die. But Damien says that's not what it's about. Let's say he pulls the trigger one more time and they take out the queen. What would that change? His friend Van is already gone. He won't be able to bring him back even with revenge. No matter how hard he tries, even if he gives his all, the world just keeps taking more and more from him. Damien says he wants to stop and can't take suffering like this anymore. He starts to say he's ready to meet Van, but Ash shouts his name. Ash asks if the boy thinks this world is unreasonable and that life is painful. Even if you overcome it, more obstacles will appear. Damien says yes. Grabbing him by the collar, Ash yells that he just said the obvious in the dumbest way possible. If there's a hard mode in this world, it's hell mode, and it's natural that you can't save and carry everything in Iron Man mode. But this isn't a game. This game was built to be hell from the start. Ash yells that the world isn't fair and nothing will ever go how you want, but that's just how it is. They're all surviving in this terrible world. Ash wonders if that means they should give up the attack as he yells at Damien that he must not give up and choose death. The attacks must continue until their last breath. Ash screams that he'll fight to the end. He draws his dagger and says that if Damien wants to give up and die, he should cut his own throat. But if Damien is too much of a coward even for that, he'll do it himself. Ash tells the boy to stop thinking about his dead friend. All they need to stay strong is him, a commander. So Damien must stop looking for a reason to stay alive. He is his pawn, his key, his weapon. And that is enough. Ash yells that that is enough, and the system announces that he has unlocked a new skill, the Indomitable Commander. With a furious look, Ash says that's an order. He puts his hand on the boy's shoulder and tells Damien to blow those monsters' heads off. The boy agrees, saying that if that's his command, then he'll follow it. A soldier reports that the last shot has been loaded, but at that point, there's no way to cool the cannon. Ash steps in front of it. He observes the cannon's bullet chamber emanating smoke and says he'll carry it. The soldier is shocked and says he'll burn his hands if he touches it. It'll be way worse than a first-degree burn. Ash says it's better than going to hell. Then he asks if Damien is ready. The boy says he can't see anything, and Ash says that's okay. Damien comments that he can't feel his hands either, but that doesn't bother Ash. He seems confident. Then he grabs the cannon barrel and lifts it off the ground. His skin burns and he writhes in pain. Ash screams. The soldier tells him and the others to go help His Highness. Everyone approaches and grabs the boiling cannon. The whole group carries the weapon, screaming in pain. Suddenly, the Demolisher appears before them. This catches Ash's attention, and he yells for Damien, who uses his ability as his eyes bleed, and pulls the trigger. The cannon starts to heat up even more. Ash watches, full of fury. Then the bullet is launched with full force. It flies through the wreckage and heads toward the Queen. The soldiers, Ash and Damien, are on the ground and the spiders are approaching. Ash hopes the bullet hits the Queen. The entire attempt was impossible from the start. They fired the last bullet without even being able to see the target. The bullet moves at high speed. Ash concludes there's no chance that shot will hit the target, but even so, the cannonball is flying toward the Spider Queen. The altitude difference was ignored. The distance, even more so. The countless monsters in the way didn't hinder it either. The bullet flew straight to the target as if the result had already been decided. The Queen screams in rage or fear. As an impact occurs, the bullet hits the Queen's head, putting an end to it. A message appears. Someone is saying they're really impressed and asks how Ash managed to win that. Ash says he was speechless when he received his first message from a viewer as a streamer. He didn't know how to react. The same person sent another message saying they were going to favor him and asking if the guy would keep doing it, but he doesn't remember what he answered. Ash wakes up suddenly, shocked to be alive. He gets up, but he's in a lot of pain and completely bandaged. Someone says His Highness needs to rest more. Ash is stunned. A hand writes something and the person says Damien treated him with his healing power. But the burns were very deep, so it will take time for him to fully recover. It's Lily who is there. She says Ash slept for 4 days. She was already afraid he would never wake up again after defeating the Black Spider Army. Ash is speechless. He comments that she survived and the girl says it was all thanks to him. The final shot hit the Queen, which deactivated the entire army. Lily says they won. Soldiers carry the bodies and search for wounded in the rubble. The reinforcements collected the allies' bodies and got rid of the spiders. They almost finished everything. Lily says he suffered serious burns on his hands, arms, shoulders, and neck, and once they wrap up the crossroads, he should go through the temple. But even if he fully recovers, some scars will remain. Ash says that as long as he's alive, that's a fair price to pay. He asks how Lily feels, and if she was hurt, the girl turns around. She's in a wheelchair. Ash is shocked. When her mana ran out, a spider attacked her from behind. Fortunately, the Queen died before she suffered further attacks. But the nerves in her back must have been damaged because she can no longer move the lower part of her body. Ash is speechless. But Lily tells him not to worry. She's grateful just to have survived. The only survivors were 5 shooters: Lucas, Damien, her, and him. 9 people. There were hundreds of soldiers before the final battle. Now there are only 9. There must have been another way. Another tactic he didn't consider. There must have been a way to save more people. Lily puts her hand on Ash and says he is not God. There's no way he could save everyone, and he did his best. Ash says it was he who led the army there, even if the character Ash did it alone without him. But since he's in Ash's body, that makes it his responsibility. Lily says no one could have predicted that those monsters appeared on a large scale, a number greater than in the last 10 years. No one would have stopped him from going into battle, so he shouldn't blame himself. Lucas enters the room shouting for His Highness. He starts to cry and says he's very grateful that Ash is awake. Shouting, he asks if Ash is okay and says he'll call Damien. But the young man says he's fine and can handle it. Then asks if Lucas didn't suffer serious injuries and if it's okay for him to be walking around like that. Proudly, Lucas says he's famous for his tough body. Ash thinks that's true. He's a high-level knight. Lucas says he completed the list of the dead while Ash was asleep, but there are still many bodies that haven't been found. They collected as many as they could. Ash asks where they placed the bodies, and Lucas says at the forward base in the northern field. Ash says he wants to go there to take a look. He gets up and Lucas tries to stop him. Lily says he can't and needs more rest. But Ash says, seriously, that they lost their lives under his command. He needs to see them. Then he asks Lucas to help him walk. Along the wall, Lucas carries Ash on his back with a smile. The young man thinks about how comfortable that is. Then he asks if Lucas would like to be his favorite horse. The knight says his wish is a command, but Ash quickly says it was just a joke. Damien watches. He's standing still in front of a rock. Lucas and Ash reach him, and he's happy to see that his highness is awake. Ash asks how his eyes are, and he responds that they're better. He started seeing again the day before, and now his vision is almost completely back to normal. The young man observes he heard that Damien treated his wounds. Ash wonders if he used his healing power when he couldn't even see. Ash concludes that he was really harsh with the boy this time. Then he says they only succeeded in the mission thanks to the boy, and that, if he wants, he'll give him all the money he wants to retire and find a way so that he never has to fight again in his life. He's free. Damien asks if Ash doesn't remember what he called him, weapon. He wants to know the source of those monsters. How could someone create monsters like that? He wants to know why Van had to die, so he intends to continue following Ash. Lucas looks on proudly. Ash is happy and says then Damien's job will begin immediately, because he'll need a priest when he honors the men who died. They light a blue flame. Ash watches in silence. He knows that wasn't the best path, that he didn't use the best strategies. But there's no point thinking about the what-ifs of things that have already happened. He chose his strategy and executed it. This was the final result. That means he needs to deal with the consequences. He needs to bear the burden on his shoulders. Ash says that as soon as the informal funeral ends, Lucas should collect the bodies for transport. At the crossroads, hundreds of thousands of people die each year. This is a world where funerals are more expensive than lives themselves. Ash says there's a field to the west where the bodies should be buried. His plan is to build a cemetery where in the game he built a memorial stone. He says that from that day on, the last day of February, will be the day to remember those who have passed. Lucas agrees. This isn't just for them, it's also its atonement. For all the characters he annihilated without guilt while he reset the game hundreds of times. The blue flame dances as it burns, and Ash calls for Lucas and says he doesn't intend to repeat that mistake. You will never fail again, then tells them to return. They must go back to headquarters, to the crossroads. The system announces that Stage 0 has been overcome. He received a reward for it and can view it in his inventory. Several wagons travel across an open field. It's been 3 days since they left the forward base where the tutorial takes place and started heading north where their headquarters is. Ash complains that he's very bored there, then asks Lucas if they're almost there, but the knight says there's still a bit to go and asks him to be patient. The young man takes a deep breath, wondering why Lucas always gives him the same answers, if by chance he's some kind of delivery guy. The system asks Ash to choose a job. It's time to start making choices. For completing the tutorial, he reached level 5 in this game. That's the level where you choose your job. He looks at his current stats and complains about how low they are. This is a really bad character. But it's interesting that his stats suddenly went up. He can choose any job he wants in this game. But the problem is at the end of the list. Beginner level commander, a class he's never seen before in that game. Ash wonders what kind of job that is. An Iron Man bonus. Maybe it's one of those hidden classes people always talk about. The young man looks at the system screen for a bit. The name of the skill he obtained earlier was the Indomitable Commander. Maybe they're guiding him to follow the path of the commander. His skill is born from perseverance in the face of any situation, and all allies within 10 meters will be immune to mental attacks. It's a pretty useful skill, but it's useless at the start of the game. Mind magic only shows up after half the battles. Besides, he doesn't feel comfortable picking a job he knows nothing about. Ash complains of a headache. Lucas shouts that the crossroads is in sight. The young man sticks his head out the window, happy. Then he's stunned. It's a gigantic walled castle. Crossroads is the name of the fortress located at the far south of that game's world. It was built to serve as a defense against the countless monsters of the southern Black Lake. At this point, it's the largest fortress of that empire. But as the frequency of attacks and invasions decreased, the empire shifted its army to other areas. Then the empty spots were filled with mercenaries, usually former soldiers cast aside after the war or inexperienced rookies. The mercenaries were hired regardless of their skills or nationalities. The empire just needed them to take the front lines as meat shields. As cheap labor flooded in, more restaurants, inns, and banks opened near the fortress. Now more than 10 years have passed, and the stronghold has grown so large it could be mistaken for a city. And it won't be long before they stop calling the crossroads a fortress and start calling it Fortress City, the front line against monsters. There's also another name for it, used to mock mercenaries who traded their lives for money. They call it the City of Graves. Ash watches the fortress from the window. The last line of defense of humanity is the crossroads. When he saw it on the computer, he hadn't realized how big it was. And it's much older than he thought. Either way, he wants to know if he'll be the lord of that city. The wagons move through the city's streets. Lucas notices the people staring at them. Ash looks out the window in silence. He doesn't like the atmosphere. The people seem angry. The young man breaks into a cold sweat. After all, their new lord and commander came back alone after leading all his troops away. It's fine, Ash smiles and concludes that he prepared for this. One of the wagons is filled with precious stones and people notice them. Ash packed a cargo full. There are 400 mana stones from black spiders. Since they were high-level monsters, their gems are of high purity and worth a lot. That means they won't have to worry about money for a while. Since the game's director made him reach an impossible level, he should receive a good reward. To make fair progress in the game, the cooperation of the citizens is crucial. For now, the population's trust in him is negative, but he knows exactly how to make them like him. Smiling, Ash thinks he hopes they're very happy. He's definitely going to win their hearts in a clean and rational way. The wind rustles the trees, and the carriages stop. Lucas opens the door and announces to Ash that they've arrived. The young man thanks the knight as he steps down. They are at the noble estate of the crossroads. Ash is shocked. He can hardly believe that will become his home. It's nothing like the house he used to live in. Who would have thought he'd get his dream home out of nowhere? Someone runs to hug Ash, excited. It's a bespectacled person saying they're very grateful their lord is back. Ash looks at him, startled. The young man starts to get nervous and says he shouldn't call Ash Lord, then apologizes to his highness. But Ash says it's okay. He grabs Ash's hand and says he was afraid he was dead. He starts crying because Ash has scratches on his precious body. That guy freaking out is named Ider. In the game, he's an NPC who appears later in the city. He handles administrative tasks at the crossroads like construction, employment, and maintenance. Ash will complete the city maintenance missions with him. The mansion gates open. Ider says he prepared a hot bath for him and a meal, then asks Ash to rest that day. Ash looks at everything in silence, then asks Lucas to let the soldiers take the day off too and for Lucas to rest as well. Worried, Lucas says he has to take care of Ash, but the boy says he doesn't need to and tells him to rest and come back the next day. Lucas looks sad, but agrees with his highness. Ider guides Ash through the house. He thinks Lucas's room must be on the first floor. A hot water faucet fills a massive bathtub. Ider says that once Ash gets into that hot bath, he'll forget all about his fatigue and the smell of battle blood. Ash observes he hasn't bathed in years and is feeling extremely tired that day. So if he was going to rest anyway, Ash thanks Ider and tells him to go rest. The young man starts taking off his shirt, smiling. Ider says there's one more thing. He was very impressed with the performance of the classic geek gamer. Ash is shocked because Ider knows who he is. The two stand still for a few moments. Ider says he didn't expect Ash to beat the tutorial with a method like that. Furious, Ash turns to him asking if it was him. Excited, Ider says there's nothing left to hide. He is the director of Protect the Empire. Ash punches him in the face. The boy flies across the room. The MC wonders how that idiot could be the director, so he's the bastard who brought him into that game. Ider begs Ash to calm down, and Niebel's apologizing for kidnapping him and bringing him there. But that world really needs him. Ash jumps on him to punch him again. Ider cries with his face swollen and bleeding. Ash starts to speak and asks if Ider is the director who messaged him. He confirms. Then asks if he is the director of that game, meaning that world. Ider says yes. The way he talks irritates Ash, but he continues the conversation and asks why he was brought there. Wiping the blood with a handkerchief, Ider says that world has a true ending, an ending no one had reached before. And instead of reaching that ending, he reset that world countless times, but never reached the ending he desired. Ash asks if that's why he decided to ask for help, and Ider confirms. Something magical begins to happen. Ider manipulates the system windows and says he redesigned the game and showed it to players from other worlds. Before them, the server list appears. Among the chosen worlds is Earth. That's how he tried all the possibilities he had never imagined. But no one had been able to reach the true end. Ash asks if it wasn't the same for him and questions what the true ending even is. Ider says that Ash wasn't supposed to be able to reach the true ending, but he completed something no one else did. He's the only person who cleared Iron Man Hell mode. Ider explains that Ash had the most potential, and that's why he was brought into that world. Ash complains, saying he wasn't brought, he was kidnapped. Besides that, he was placed in the tutorial in Ash's body. He questions why Ider did that. Then the boy says it was a mistake, didn't see out what happened. But now he wants to be the first to tell him about the reward he's going to receive. Ash is confused. If he takes that world to its true ending, he'll receive a wish. Ash wonders what that is and if he somehow ended up in a Dragon Ball Anon. Ider says he's like a god in that world. Ash wonders how he can trust him. The boy continues, saying that when he returns to his world, he'll be able to receive an extravagant gift. Ash asks if he can ask for anything and Ider agrees. Ash asks if he could even ask for 10 billion won. Adjusting his glasses, Eider says that's nothing. He could even give him 100 billion won. Our hero gets angry. He feels like that bastard is just feeding him empty promises. But to be honest, all of it is tempting. He'll have the right to one wish. In truth, there's only one thing he's always wanted. If this kid is serious about granting any wish, then Eider interrupts his thoughts and asks if he has a wish in mind, something he wants that isn't money. He has a dream he never gives up on. Ash stays silent. That's when he realizes the self-proclaimed God in front of him knew everything about him when he brought him there. He knows about his regrets and how he's been living while carrying those burdens. Eider says he'll make that wish come true, but Ash says it's already too late. Eider says that as long as he keeps his dream in his heart, it's not over yet. Ash asks why Eider doesn't reach the true end himself if he has those abilities. The boy replies that there are limits to his abilities at the moment. In that world, he is just an ordinary human. That's why he needed to find someone like Ash. The MC says he has a question for Eider and asks what happens if he dies in that world. Eider replies that he will die for real. Life only has one chance. There's no save or load in real life. He should know that since he beat the game in Iron Man mode. Ash thinks he's right. That's the reality of that game. You can give up on many things, but there's no going back when it comes to death. Eider says that if Ash wants to return to Earth right now, he can do it. The young man is shocked. Nervously, Eider says he wanted to ask him from the beginning, but things got in the way. Now he must make his choice. Does he want to try reaching the true ending of that game and earn a wish? Or does he want to return to his ordinary and peaceful life, where there's no risk of dying? The decision is entirely up to him. If Ash were to think logically, he would go back immediately. But there are two things stopping him. One is his desire to make that wish come true, and the other is his confidence. He thinks it's worth trying. He beat this game on Iron Man Hell mode, so he knows everything about it. He just needs to win one more time. Ash wonders why not do it. Then he agrees. He'll try. Eider gets excited. Seriously, Ash says he's really going to try, so Eider has to promise he'll help him and not forget his wish when he reaches the true ending. Eider gets really excited and shouts that it's no problem. He'll stay with Ash like a dog. Ash presses his finger against the boy's chest and tells him to make sure all the mana stones from the black spiders are sold by the next day. Eider is startled. Then Ash says they're conversion items and Eider should know the selling route. The boy says that's true, but the market is already closed at that hour. Angrily, Ash tells Eider to shut up and do what he said. No matter what he has to do, he must ensure the sale of all of them before Ash has to take care of other duties. Scared, Eider says there are 388 mana stones from the black spiders. Their market value is astronomical. Eider asks what Ash intends to do with all that money. Ash says his role is vacant. The boy is confused. Then Ash smiles and wonders what kind of question that is. Lucas and Ash head to the mercenary guild. It's time to play a gacha game. Tossing a coin into the air, Ash says he's taken it easy up to this point. He catches the coin in midair and mocks that even so, he's had 100 consecutive victories. In the morning, Eider is with his knights in front of many gold bars. The boy is exhausted. Ash and Lucas stand before a door, and from inside they can hear people speaking loudly. Then Ash wonders what that could be at that hour of the morning. Lucas asks to go in first, but the young man kicks the door asking if anyone is inside. The place looks like a tavern full of people. A bald man, furious, asks what the hell is going on and if Ash has a last wish. Furious, Ash shouts asking what those bastards are talking about and tells them to lower their eyes. Then he approaches the bald man who gets scared and says he is his master, then asks if he has a last wish. People begin to whisper that that's Ash, the third prince, and a psychopath. He's the one who took the entire army to the forward base but wiped out all the spiders. Ash is looking for someone who stands out. The Mercenary Guild is where you can select new characters, and their appearances change depending on their ranks. He looks closely to see if he finds something. A man in the corner surrounded by a purple light catches his attention. He's smoking a cigar. He welcomes Ash to the Crossroads branch. That's the branch of the Continental Mercenary Guild. He's an older person wearing a uniform covered in medals. He's a high-ranking member. Ash is shocked. Then he sits down and asks the name of that person. She introduces herself as Jupiter and says it's an honor to meet Ash. He thinks she's a mage. He can't believe that old lady is in the Mercenary Guild. Looking at her, he says he's never seen that uniform, so he asks where Jupiter is from. She replies that she belongs to the Everblack Empire itself. The design is from decades ago, so she understands why he doesn't recognize it. Smiling, Ash says he assumes she wore it as a soldier of the Empire. Jupiter says she dedicated 30 years of her life to that. She even became second general of the Empire's mage troops, and since leaving, has worked as a mercenary. Ash says then she still dedicates herself to her country even after retiring, an admirable model. But Jupiter says it's not quite like that. She just needs the money. Shaking her drink, she asks what brought His Highness to that place, and he asks what other reason he would have to come to the Mercenary Guild. He's there to hire a good soldier. Jupiter questions if he's sure he's not there to buy sacrifices who will die in his place. Lucas shouts that she's being reckless, but Ash holds him back, asking him to stop. Bringing the cigar to her mouth, Jupiter mentions the battle at the forward base and says it's already spread throughout the city. It seems he paid a high price for his first irresponsible battle. Jupiter says it's true that they're just random people fighting for money, but they're not idiots willing to dig their own graves. So she concludes saying they have no intention of following the young commander into war just to throw their lives away. Ash remains calm and says he understands. Then he stands up and begins to say that everyone there is after money first and foremost. They wouldn't be there selling their lives if they had a better alternative. Ash asks if they're afraid now. Ash slams the table next to Jupiter and asks if she's saying they're not idiots who throw their lives away. That's a strange thing to say. Jupiter asks why, and he replies that she has great qualifications. But the reason she had to retire was because she accepted bribes from military authorities. Smiling, he asks if that's not what she calls digging her own grave. Ash thinks she probably didn't expect him to have that information. Then he adds that she wasn't just involved in corruption schemes. She also smuggled goods, which is why she was subjected to a dishonorable discharge. Even so, she wears that uniform with pride. He asks how shameless she can be. She is the embodiment of corruption, a soldier who rotted to the core, a dishonored retiree who was removed from her post. But when it comes to her combat skills, she's a heroine who looks more like a pirate than a soldier, known as Jupiter, the lightning mage. Jupiter says that even if her career as a soldier didn't end well, she still takes pride in having served the Empire. Serious, she tells him to be careful with what he says, and Ash asks what her price is, how much he would have to pay to buy her pride. The old woman looks at Ash. He asks how much he would have to pay to make her his hunting dog. Smiling, she says she's more expensive than he thinks. She charges 100,000 gold a year. Ash offers 200,000 to her, and she drops the cigar. He says he'll give her double if she joins him. Maybe that's a huge amount to pay a mercenary, but he's the one in charge. And he just sold 388 mana stones. He wonders if this is what flaunting wealth looks like. He can buy whoever he wants. Ash grabs a paper and shouts for everyone to hear. He's going to buy their fear of death. He will give them twice their salaries in a single payment. If they're cowards who don't want to sell their lives, they should leave. But if they're real mercenaries who want real money, they should meet him at the western field of the crossroads that afternoon. That might be a lot of money to pay mercenaries. Inside a building, a woman uses her magic on Ash. She's healing him, but says his burn will leave a small scar. Ash thanks her holiness. Margarita says he doesn't need to thank her. She's a high-rank healer. He might be able to recruit her in the future if he meets the right conditions. But that's not why he's there that day. Ash places a gold pouch and talks about the request they discussed earlier. Margarita says she called all the priests she could. Even Damien is there. Smiling, Ash tells them to proceed. There's a lot to do, so it's best to stay strong. That afternoon, west of the crossroads, all the mercenaries are there. The coffins arrive from the forward base. Even Ken's grave is there with a picture of his family. Ash remains silent. The soldiers are in a single file and each coffin has a flag. There's also a huge choir. In that city, where death is common, they held a proper funeral ceremony. Moreover, the families will be compensated with a large amount of money as support. They were shocked by the amount and rumors spread among the citizens. The word will spread quickly. Ash has no intention of softening anything. All of it is for show, but it's a reasonable tactic. The act of fighting on the front lines must be seen as a noble sacrifice for the good of humanity. He takes a step forward and says he is the third prince and their new Lord Ash. The people are shocked that this is the new Lord, a hopeless prince who seems to have a bad temper. Ash says to be clear, everyone there's going to die. In the war, Ash declares before everyone that he is the new Lord. While the murmurs go on, Jupiter stares at him silently. He sees her and realizes that in the end, she came after all. New graves will appear in that cemetery every week and the chorus songs will echo everywhere, but he needs to emphasize something. The death of everyone there is more expensive than life. The funeral fees along with the compensation given to families reach astronomical values. He has already spent about half the money he got from mana stones just for the compensation fund. Death cannot be seen as something ordinary and brutal. Ash says he will do his best to save everyone there. He will do everything in his power to save them and to have their advantage on the front lines. So they must not dare to die. They must live so that he can pay their salaries. Ash asks them not to make him pay for their funerals. He ends the speech and the soldiers fire shots into the air. The young man wonders how the citizens will see this, just as the excuses of an incompetent commander or a crazy lord full of money. It doesn't matter. After all, what comes next will speak for itself. That he, in those battles against the monsters, is the most talented of them all. Excited, Ash says it's time to finish Stage 1. The system informs that there are 3 days and 1 hour left until Stage 1 begins. After the funeral, in the backyard of the Lord's residence at the crossroads, Lucas and Ash are standing still. The system asks if the young man would like to activate the teleport gate. Ash says yes, definitely. Suddenly, stones begin to levitate. They meet, forming the frame of a portal. Magic happens right before their eyes. Lucas asks what that is, and Ash replies it's a portal that takes them to the dungeon beneath the lake. The knight is shocked, and Ash approaches the portal. That's a free passage to the enemy headquarters. The game Protect the Empire is a mix of 2 genres, tower defense and dungeon assault. This is even stated on the game's packaging. The stage where monsters appear before the crossroads is the tower defense part, and it's between these two stages, during the part where they explore the dungeon beneath the lake and enter the enemy headquarters when they are not attacking. It's called free exploration and defined by dungeon assault. This back and forth battle is the foundation of that game, as Ash had thought that portal appears before stage 1. It is a stupidly difficult game, but that is definitely fair. He had a rough time in the tutorial, but they had a good start. He began with Damien, who is basically a cheat code, and Jupiter, the old electric mage. On top of that, he has a lot of money. This is a lucky break. Ash explained the game rules to Lucas and told him they are going to spy on the enemies in the next stage. Lucas agrees, excited. He says he's ready. Ash is confused. Surely Lucas has more doubts than anyone else. Not only did the master he served his whole life suddenly change personality, but he started to understand the city and dungeons, even if it was his first time there. He's probably scared of all of this, but will follow orders anyway. Ash wonders if Lucas thinks all this is strange. Then he calls out to Lucas and asks if the knight has no questions for him. Lucas gets nervous, staring at Ash, and tells him that he's simply going to follow his commands so he has no questions. He will be his sword and shield. He will simply kill and defend as Ash commands. The young man stares at his knight, unresponsive. He can't believe Lucas has no questions. But that was Lucas' way of saying he trusts Ash. The MC trembles, thinking about how Lucas is a rascal. He's going to make sure the knight gets strong bonuses. Smiling, Ash asks if Lucas is ready to enter the hold to hell. He replies that he's ready to go anywhere it's with Ash. The young man is satisfied. The system asks where Ash wants to teleport to, and he selects the lake. So both of them enter the portal, which immediately dissolves. They are being teleported, and the system gives him a tip, saying that heroes can grow stronger with equipment found in dungeons. Ash gets angry at the tip and the fact that the game is suddenly trying to seem cool. They exit the portal somewhere else. Ash and Lucas are standing in front of the lake. The young man looks around. The Black Lake is the monster's headquarters. That is a hellish landscape from the worst nightmare, the dungeon that blocks the southern region of the world. Lucas shouts for his highness and says there's something ahead. Bubbles rise from beneath the water. Then the lake opens, forming a path. From underground, several hands emerge, and then knights dig themselves out. There are dozens of them. Ash is startled. Those are the wandering armors. He wonders why he has to be in the body of that bastard. He doesn't care what monster shows up in stage 1, he handles goblins, mermaids, and even wyverns just fine. But all those are low-level monsters. The ones here are bastards. His luck in the game is gone. Lucas says it looks like they'll have to defend themselves from those wandering armors. The system says there's new information about their enemies. In stage 1, he has an enemy of unknown level and 1,052 level 5 wandering armors. Lucas looks around and asks if Ash is okay and if there's something wrong. Ash is speechless and tells Lucas he thinks he said the same thing during the tutorial. They're completely screwed. Ash reset the game 741 times, each time for a different reason. When the wandering armors showed up, he reset without thinking twice. They are monsters wearing armor but inside their spirits. To sum up, they have huge tolerance to physical attacks. Mid-game, they become easy to handle, provided you have all types of equipment, but that's not their current condition. Ash thinks he was fine fighting anyone, but not the wandering armors. By then he feels some kind of evil energy surrounding him, something purposely getting in his way. The armors start dragging themselves toward the pair, and there are still 3 days until the stage begins. Ash tells him and Lucas to fall back, and the knight agrees. He needs to consider every possible defense alternative. Ash shouts for Eider. He keeps shouting until the boy appears. Ash asks Eider how many troops they have in the city. There are 526 soldiers in total. The young man is shocked. He made 100 consecutive plays but only has 500 troops. Eider explains that most of the men were used in the tutorial. Ash calls him an idiot and asks about reinforcements. Then Eider says they already hired all the mercenaries who came to the city. There are no more in that area. Ash yells at him to get troops from other cities and to say he'll pay double. Eider agrees while writing in a notepad. The young man also asks him to send a message to the Imperial Palace to inform them the monsters are starting to become active and they need reinforcements. Eider writes the message and asks if Ash is sure about that. If they ask for Imperial support at that moment, a fatal event will happen later, but they need to survive right now. Ash tells Eider to just call for reinforcements. He also asks Eider to summon the city's carpenters, masons, and alchemists. Eider says that will stop mana production. Angrily, Ash asks who cares about mana stones when the city is on the brink of ruin. He must stop everything and bring the men there. Eider agrees. The door slams shut. The difficulty of that game isn't normal in any way. He thought it was hard before that moment. Ash opens the system. He no longer has that leisure. The harder the game gets, the more variables he'll need to create. So he decided to play and select the job of beginner-level commander. The system congratulates him and releases confetti. Ash gets stressed out by that special effect. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his chest. He wonders what it is, panicked. The 50% debuff will be applied to his stat growth. Ash is confused. A 50% debuff will be applied to equipping his skills. The young man screams, asking what that is and if the system is messing with him. Furious, he questions what kind of job starts with that kind of debuffs. He grabs a metal tool and asks if that's a trap, saying he's going to finish off Eider. Then he receives some skills: Attack Totem, Defense Totem, Super Buffer, Main Order, and Group Synergy. Ash stays silent for a moment and wonders what that is. A fireplace burns. He questions those skills if he can apply the buffer to all his allies. That means that just by being on the battlefield, he can reduce attack and defense as a unit, which is why they added the debuffs. Ash observes and concludes that it's very good. Group Synergy is a class bonus. He will receive a bonus according to the jobs of the members in his team. It's a system exclusively dedicated to jobs. For someone who used to be a gamer like him, that's the best job of all. Ash picks up the metal object and hangs it back in its place. The next day, Ash asks what happened. Eider says none of them would comply with his orders, so if he brought in a representative union, for now, the men are tied up. Ash says he sees, but that's kidnapping. The leader of the Blacksmiths Union asks what the hell Ash is doing. The leader of the Carpenters Union yells that he can't imprison them like that and asks if Ash will take responsibility if the manufacturing process collapses. Angrily, the leader of the Alchemists Union says that even if Ash is royalty, there's a time and place for everything. Ash gets worried because everyone is angry, all shouting with red faces. Then he asks if the bastards have a last wish, and how they dare to shout at him. When the prince of that country and lord of that city calls them, they should crawl to him. Angrily, he says the leaders hurt his feelings and he should finish them all right there. The leaders become scared and sad and apologize, saying it's the first time they've had a member of the royal family as their lord. Sometimes it's easy to be Ash. Ash explains his plans to the leaders, who are shocked and ask if he's serious. Calmly, the young man says yes, and that he'll give them 20% of the mana stones collected by the military. If they have a stock of mana stones, it'll be a win for everyone. They should make direct transactions. But in return, they must manufacture war supplies as the top priority whenever he requests. Of course, he'll also pay according to production. Smiling, Ash concludes that it's not a bad deal. They'll be coerced with money and rights. This is the kind of negotiation he can make right now. Of course, it's fair to question if Ash is being too materialistic. The leaders get excited and say they'll do it, so the strategy is working. Ash and Eider are thrilled. Nothing is more reliable in the world than money. Stage 1 starts in 2 days and 13 hours. Wandering armors advance. Ash says he's sure Lucas already mentioned it. Those monsters, the 1,000 wandering armors, are approaching that city. They should arrive in 2 days. Ash falls silent. Everyone there is acting like they've already lost. Lucas asks Ash what they should do, and the young man replies everything within their reach. At that moment, he'll give his subordinates their respective roles. Lucas is the army commander and tells Ash he promises to give it his all. Ash says discipline will be lacking among the soldiers, and it's his job to keep them in line. Lucas agrees. Lily calls for Ash and says, as he can see, she's in a wheelchair. But Ash says this time they need her help, but she won't be on the front line, so she doesn't need to worry. She's confused and asks what she'll do. Lily will be the supervisor for repairing the tower defense artifacts. Ash thinks he can't let her retire just yet. As an officer of that city, she's destined to work hard for the rest of her life. Jupiter, with a cigar in her mouth, says she has a question about her salary. Smiling, she asks if there will be a raise if she shows good results. She's an old woman crazy about money. Her trait of obsession with gold coins is exactly the same as in the game. Ash says yes, he'll give her a raise depending on her performance. Smiling, she says she suggests he start thinking about how much that raise will be next year, because no mercenary deserves more money than her. Jupiter remained as commander of the special force. Eider hands something to Damien. Ash says he prepared that especially for the healer. He asks what it is. It's a level 10 crossbow. Damien says he'll do his best. He took on the role of a long-range sniper. Damien starts playing with the crossbow, enjoying himself. His demeanor might be a bit troublesome, but Ash is sure he'll do well, just like with the cannon. Then he asks Damien where his glasses are, and if the boy decided to stop wearing them. Damien says yes, since his vision power is actually really good. He only wore the glasses to slightly worsen his sight, but now he needs his eyes, so he won't use the glasses anymore. Ash looks relieved at his team. Eider says that makes him really happy. He was already bothered by having 2 characters with glasses. Banging the table, Ash tells Eider to shut up. After the strategy meeting on the southern wall of the crossroads, some repairs were being made. Ash arrives at the leaders of those activities, who greet him. He asks how walls are going. One of the leaders says not very well. The wall had been neglected for a long time. The young man falls silent and asks Eider, angrily, if that city isn't known as a fortress city, and if wall maintenance shouldn't be included in upkeep. Eider replies nervously that they didn't have enough money. When the number of monsters drops, they get fewer mana stones, so the previous lord reduced the budget. Ash asks if that fortress wasn't built to block monsters. He wonders how they could neglect the wall just because they had less money. Then he yells that he doesn't care how much money or material is used, The walls must be repaired until they're nearly unbreakable. The construction leaders agree, and Ash tells them to hurry because the monsters are coming. The young man heads to the workshop. There, Ash talks about the news that over the next 2 days, he's going to build walls. The man is confused. Ash says he wants walls. He shows the height he wants, like the ones that block roads. The man says the monsters will easily break down walls made of wood, so they won't work as walls. But Ash says he doesn't need walls strong enough to block the enemies, and all they need to do is build the wooden walls. Ash yells that they must be tall and sturdy, amazing walls. The man, the whole team stare at Ash, and the boy tells the man to stop asking questions and get to work. Over the next 2 days, Lucas prepared the army. Damien trained with his crossbow. Jupiter rested peacefully. Ash fought with Eider. Lily monitored the city's magical matters. The preparation went on without any setbacks. Time flew. Meanwhile, on the southern walls of the crossroads, there are 30 minutes left before Stage 1 begins. A strange movement starts on the horizon. It's the wandering armors coming out of the forest. The guard yells that they've arrived. Then he beats a drum to announce it. The monsters are advancing and ready for battle. There are many, and they're walking quickly toward the wall. A flame is lit. Ash yells that there's nothing to fear. He is at the top of the wall observing. The young man shouts that all the monsters have in their favor is their number of soldiers. Of course, that's not true. The wandering armors are the worst kind of monster to appear at the start of the game. Ash yells that they are the most powerful army in the Southern Empire. Another lie, they're just young and old mercenaries with no experience. He yells that the tower's defense is perfect and their equipment is in top condition. Another lie, far from it, even after major investments. In the position of leader, Ash yells that they can stop the monsters. There's nothing to fear. The young man decided to bluff out loud for everyone. He commands everyone to follow his orders, and that night they'll be able to drink to celebrate victory. No one is more anxious than he is. The enemies approach quickly, along with the dark cloud. Ash smiles, he's counting on Jupiter. By that point, half of his efforts rely on her. In the forest, Jupiter manipulates the cloud filled with lightning and tells herself and the boys to advance. Horses gallop. They pass by the enemies. The monsters have a basic action pattern. Jupiter is on her horse with a cigar in her mouth. The monsters try to annihilate any human that crosses their sight, and if there's nothing in their way, they will choose the shortest distance to finish off the humans. The monsters start running after the horses. It's obvious where those creatures will go, so traps work very well against them. The wandering armors begin to fall into a cliff. They didn't have time to dig very deep. Ash yells for Jupiter to act. That's all they need. Jupiter uses her electricity power. She seems quite confident and says it's time. To make her money worth it, she unleashes absurd shockwaves into the cliff, striking the wandering armors. When the smoke clears, the monsters are very weak down below. One of them stares at Jupiter. She asks what that creature is looking at. She doesn't even know what kind of monsters they are. She begins using her magic again. The monsters look up. Ash is startled because that can only be Jupiter. Even her cigar starts to emit electricity. Jupiter looks at the monsters and says dinner will be fried armor. Then she casts her magic once more and yells at them to make sure they're done for this time. Everyone on the wall cheers. Ash notices that Jupiter used her first skill to mark her enemies and then her second skill to deal even more damage. The number of eliminated enemies increases and Ash is impressed by Jupiter's power. She waits for the smoke to clear. Many armors were completely destroyed, but they keep advancing. There are 1,000 of them, so that attack only scratched the surface. Ash yells for Jupiter to retreat, and she yells at her team to get out of there. The cavalry runs toward the wall. Meanwhile, the monsters chase after them. Tense, Jupiter yells at the boys to run faster and not look back. They move forward, trying to shake off the enemies. Ash watches. Everything's going as planned. Ash yells for them to follow the instructions. Now they'll be held as reserves. One of the cavalry boys looks back and panics at the number of wandering armors chasing him. They just need to hold on a little longer. Jupiter yells that they're going in. One of the boys confirms it. They're heading towards several wooden walls. They pass through them with their horses. Ash celebrates. The walls begin to move. The monsters look up. They are surrounded by those walls. Ash says he bets they've never seen an amazing wall like that. He smiles and questions what the monsters will do now. The enemies can either dodge or destroy. Jupiter looks back. To Ash, it's obvious what the creatures will do. Annihilate any human in front of their eyes. They are stupid monsters and begin charging toward the horses ahead, funneling through the walls. If they had closed all the paths, they would destroy the walls to get through, but instead they are squeezing through the narrow gap. Ash announces they will begin firing. The enemy line is narrowing and their mobility is reduced. Ash thanks his soldiers for their patience and orders them to open fire with everything they've got. The cannons begin to fire. Multiple cannonballs fly toward the wandering armors. They begin to get hit. This is basic tower defense gameplay. The armors fall apart and the enemies drop. Explosions go off everywhere. Winning means drawing them into where you want them to be. That's the so-called death zone. Ash yells to bombard the enemies. He watches from above. Damien asks if he doesn't think that's enough already. The monsters won't be able to get through. But Ash says not yet. The monsters begin to reorganize. They line up their shields and try to form a protective barrier. Ash knew that wouldn't be the end. They're tough bastards. That's exactly what Ash prepared for them. The young man yells for Lily and tells her to advance. The girl agrees and activates the gravitational field artifact. A massive ring floats in the sky. The artifact activates, and a dome forms around the monsters. They start moving more slowly. Ash yells that the enemies are slowed and calls for Lucas. The knight orders his ballista unit to advance. Men prepare a giant crossbow. There are several of them on the wall. Lucas yells to aim for the enemy's chests and gives the signal to fire. The enormous arrows fly through the air. They break even a creature's shields. They collapse to the ground, and many are annihilated. Ash stacks damage with crossfire, then finishes them off with the artifact and shooters. They're following the procedure. A man approaches. It's a knight who yells to Ash that some of them are circling around the wall. The enemies are slipping through the gaps, escaping the main line of fire. Just as Ash predicted, there are more of them than he imagined. So he calls for Jupiter. He yells for her to handle the wandering armors that are circling the wooden walls, for her to intercept and escape. Smiling, Jupiter agrees. Then she calls the cavalry to advance. The monsters charge toward them rapidly, but Jupiter charges up her electricity. She unleashes her power on the enemies, causing an explosion. From afar, Ash is relieved that she controlled that side. Now all that's left is to handle the left side. Ash calls for Damien and says it's his turn. He must hit those advancing from the left side. Damien makes the sign of the cross first. Then he begins to use his magic to shoot with the crossbow. He pulls the trigger, and the arrow flies at high speed. It lands squarely on a monster's head. The creature trembles and falls apart. Damien is very happy to have landed the shot. Ash knows that's the power of farsight. He can use a simple crossbow to bring down his enemies. How many revisions must have been made to that cheat code script? In front of them is the death zone. To the right is Jupiter. To the left, Damien. The number of defeated enemies keeps increasing. They've already reached almost 500. By that point, things start to get easier until the boss. They had little time but worked very hard. Something strange begins to happen. The spirits that control the armors start to fly away. They gather in the sky in a great spiral. Ash is confused that doesn't happen in the game. They reach 500 kills. The vortex in the sky becomes more intense and starts to form a creature. Ash is speechless. That is the Spirit Knight, the boss, level 25. It appears right in front of the wall. That's the source behind the sinister powers of those bastards. The army itself is strong, but once you defend against them, the boss appears for Phase 2. The point is, they haven't even finished off all the wandering armors yet. Ash doesn't know what to do. The Spirit Knight hasn't done anything since it appeared. No area debuff, no powerful attack, just floating in the air. But this isn't a game, it's real life. The knights are scared of the boss. Its appearance in the sky is enough to throw everyone into panic and disarray. This sucks. It's the difference between a war against humans and a war against monsters. It's the primal fear caused by these massive creatures. The appearance of the boss frightened the soldiers, which caused the front line's efficiency to plummet. And it's not just the humans who are scared. The horses are terrified. Jupiter tries to stay in control, but she can't. She ends up falling to the ground. In front of her are hundreds of monsters. Jupiter hit her head and is struggling to think clearly. Ash feels hopeless. They are advancing to wipe out the living human in front of them. The army marches forward, and the people who were in the cavalry with Jupiter surround her. They're there to protect her. Jupiter was supposed to be her key strategy for Stage 1. Now she and her team are in danger. Lucas yells that they need to turn the cannons to protect Jupiter. But Ash yells no. If the death zone disappears, they'll advance even further. As a result of the boss's appearance, the soldiers on the top of the wall were thrown into chaos. The cannons and crossbows and the crossfire had been maintained without slack. Ash yells for Lucas to focus on regaining their firepower. The soldiers look shocked. He hopes Jupiter holds on. The old woman suddenly wakes up and wonders where she is. She gets up the pain in her head and sees a lot of blood, wondering why she has to go through this at her age. A boy yells for Jupiter and asks if she can hear him. He shouts that there's no more time. Then the woman snaps back to reality. Her whole team is trying to fight off the enemies. She gets furious and wonders what that means, then says it doesn't seem like a good time to lie on the ground. The boy yells that the rescue team is on the way, but they need to hold out until then. An enemy advances behind the boy, but he sees it in time and strikes the creature in the head. Even so, the monster stays on its feet, ready to attack him again. The boy is furious that the hit didn't do any damage. Jupiter is shocked and yells at the boy to look behind him. He's struck by the enemy and wonders where it came from. He was sure he finished off everyone there. It was an enemy crawling, using its last strength to take down the team. Other monsters approach to attack. They finish off the boy. Jupiter is furious, but has a problem trying to use her power. It seems she's lost control of her mana. A girl from her team is caught by the monsters and annihilated. Staying the situation, another one starts running, but an enemy sees him and throws its spear in his direction. The boy is hit and pierced by the spear. Jupiter watches it all. The few soldiers they had on the defensive line were instantly defeated. With Jupiter before them, smelling the scent of the wandering armors, the stench of old armor and rotten water. That was the smell of drained corpses. Jupiter's power charges again. She says they should have stayed in the lake, which is where they belong. She asks if they're jealous because that old lady is making money doing nothing, and she unleashes a strike against the enemies. They fall to the ground. Jupiter is exhausted. That attack was just an escape move representing less than half of her usual power. They're screwed. The woman yells for the last member of her team to run while he still can. He's confused. She says everyone there is going to die, so he should try to save himself. She's going to buy time with her mana, so the kid needs to run. The boy asks how he's supposed to run away if it's a crossbow scenario and she's a mage. Second rule of mercenary survival: always stay with the mage. He has a much better chance of surviving by staying with her than running without a horse. Jupiter is speechless. The young soldier's tactic was effective. Instead of trying to kill the army, he pushed them away. He yells that he'll do whatever it takes to keep them at bay and asks Jupiter to prepare her next attack. From above, Damien shoots with his crossbow, providing support from the top of the wall. But it wasn't enough to deal with all of them. There was a time for Jupiter to gather enough mana. The monsters defeated the young mercenary, tearing apart his body. Jupiter is furious. Lightning strikes fall from the sky onto the army. The enemies collapse, and Jupiter wonders if the boy might still be alive if she had been faster. The boy spits blood, but Jupiter is too old now to carry the death of every one of them in her heart. She gets closer to the boy and asks what the third rule of mercenary survival is. He looks at her scared, then says it's not to accept jobs that offer a suspicious amount of money. With tears in his eyes, he starts to cry. More enemies approach at high speed, and Jupiter says all of the boy's survival rules are wrong. She says that if he wants to get rich as a mercenary or gain honor, he has to take every hard job that pays a lot of money. Jupiter launches her power against the enemies again. She gets several monsters in succession and finishes by saying it's also important to stay as far away from mages as possible, because if not, the mage will take all the credit. Jupiter's hand starts to bleed from overusing her power. The woman says that if you want to survive, you shouldn't become a mercenary to begin with. She tries to light a cigar, but her mana isn't enough even for that anymore. Seeing several more enemies approaching, Jupiter says she was eagerly awaiting her bonus performance. But it seems this is the end. A horse approaches. It's Lucas preparing his sword. He attacks the monsters surrounding Jupiter. The old woman is startled. Lucas looks at her. Just moments earlier, on top of the wall, Ash yells at the soldiers to pull themselves together. He tells them not to be scared just because the boss is big. The indomitable commander skill activates. With that, the soldiers return to their positions. Ash is shocked by the sudden change, then realizes it was his power that did it. All allies within 10 meters are immune to mental attacks. Ash calls for Lucas. He says he'll calm the soldiers and recover the death zone. Meanwhile, Lucas will be responsible for the rescue team to assist Jupiter's squad. Ash is asking him to go into the death corridor to save his comrades. He's never given such a reckless command. Lucas agrees and says he'll be right back. He didn't hesitate for even a moment. He just took his horse and rode toward Jupiter. Meanwhile, Ash fought with his men to get them back in shape. Lucas charged fiercely against the enemies and saved Jupiter. She was startled. Lucas tells her to hold on tight and pulls the woman by the collar. He puts her on the horse quickly and gallops back toward the wall. The enemies grunt and begin throwing their spears to hit them. They fly at high speed, but Lucas cuts them down with his sword before they can be hit. Jupiter calls out to Lucas as they ride. Then she says he would like to meet her granddaughter. She's a good girl. Lucas says that if she has energy to make jokes, she should focus on recovering her mana. Jupiter laughs. Lucas is so affectionate with his master, but cold when the prince isn't around. Then the woman thanks him, and he says he's just following the prince's orders. Lucas keeps galloping seriously. He apologizes for not saving her sooner. Jupiter says they should leave regrets for after they've finished off all those monsters. They approach the wall, and Jupiter says she doesn't remember the last time she was so furious. Thanks to Ash's skill, he managed to reestablish the death zone. He sees Jupiter and Lucas approaching. Even so, they have already lost 4 precious heroic characters so far, all of whom were with Jupiter. He overestimated his experience with video games. Even though in the game he had to manage everyone's morale, and there were feelings like fear and confusion, in real life the responses are much more detailed. One example is that he didn't expect the horses to freak out. Since this is real life, he needs to consider all the variables. And that's also something that happens in real life. The flame ignites, caused by the flaming shots. The wooden walls begin to fall apart with the fire. The death zone has been broken. Now they are advancing at high speed. Hundreds of wandering armors are heading toward the wall. It seems they will have to fight along the fortress wall. He hoped to end it using only firepower. They've already eliminated 775 monsters. The battle is still under his control. Lucas announces that he has rescued Jupiter. He seems bothered by the fact that she is a dishonorably discharged officer, but it's wise to respect a mage. Ash says he's happy to see her alive. Jupiter says she's ashamed because she made a mistake. She got her team of kids killed in vain. She was in despair. The boy says she couldn't have known that a giant monster would appear in the air, nor that the horses would panic. It's not her fault. But the woman says it is. If she fought on battlefields for years and years, she should know how to handle it. So she's going to make up for her mistake. She's going to guarantee the annihilation of that bastard boss. Ash tells her to focus on her recovery because she'll need to use her powers soon. As the enemies advance, The cannons keep firing at them. Ash shouts that the death zone is no longer marked and asks them to cease fire. The bullets stop flying. The boy asks Damien to take a break. He tries to argue, but Ash says he'll have to take down something much bigger. Now he needs to recover. And it was at that moment that the wandering armors reached the wall. When the fortress didn't fall, the enemies began to climb it. Ash shouts for everyone to prepare for hand-to-hand combat. The soldiers get ready. He shouts for the standby soldiers to move to the front. Now they are forced to put magic aside and face the enemy with their own bodies. This is real war. The soldiers are all set to begin the fight, while the enemies rapidly climb the wall. There are still hundreds of enemies climbing the wall. The soldiers wait for them to arrive, anxious. The creatures use their own hands to climb the wall. Ash tells the knights to wait for his signal. The wandering armors make eerie sounds. Ash yells for the knights to drop things on the monsters. The men carry huge barrels to the edge of the fortress. They drop pieces of the wall like construction debris. Ash had stored them. The enemies are hit by this debris and many fall straight to the ground. Down below, they are crushed by huge stones and concrete. But the ones who remain get back up and continue advancing. They are very resilient, getting up as if nothing happened. Then the knights start using their spears to try to knock the monsters down. Ash decides to put Jupiter in the main team. He activates his team's synergy skill. That team will not lose morale, and all members with magical attacks had a 20% power increase. That boost in magical power is amazing for Ash. The soldiers begin to have their spears broken by the monsters. They are reaching the top of the fortress and begin to advance. A huge army is waiting for them. The creatures make loud sounds. Ash gets worried. Now they'll have to fight hand to hand. The knights are ready to fight, but Ash wonders if they'll manage. A strike hits one of the enemies. A huge light emanates and other monsters are destroyed by Lucas. He stops, then shouts that he will cut down all the monsters. All the army needs to do is hold the line and push them back. Everyone agrees. Ash feels relieved. It's not about whether they can do it or not. They have to do it. To survive, all these soldiers need to get stronger. They have no other choice. Ash calls Lily and asks her to activate the next artifact. The girl agrees and activates the acceleration artifact. All the knights are affected. All their movements will be 5% faster for 5 minutes. Ash takes the opportunity to equip the attack totem and the defense totem to help in close combat. The soldiers try to hold back the monsters and push them back. Ash sweats nervously. He is counting on his men. Monsters and humans fight bravely. Lucas slashes through everyone he can tirelessly. Ash notices that the strike Lucas uses is his first skill. The more enemies he kills, the stronger his skill becomes. At the moment, he is taking care of half the fortress alone. Even so, it's impossible for him to handle all the enemies alone. They are losing. The soldiers are severely injured and annihilated by the wandering armors. Unlike the monsters, the number of their wounded soldiers only increases. Damien says he's ready to return to the fight, but Ash holds him back. He wants the healer to focus his power on the boss, just like Jupiter. He doesn't know what he should do. There has to be a way to reduce the number of losses. A flash of light occurs in the middle of the battle. It startles Ash. A lot of fire forms and a huge explosion happens. It's Lily, who went to the battlefield to use her magic. Ash shouts that she really knows how to fight. The girl responds that she has always been a mage. The boy agrees and says he'll give her a raise, but Lily comments that she just wants to retire. Ash holds her wheelchair and says he'll give her a performance bonus, but he wants her to fire flames one more time. The girl yells that she wants to retire immediately and that she used up almost all her mana. Ash shouts that it's just one more shot and she can do it. The girl then launches her power at the enemies again. The group's synergy increases by 20% and the attack totem by 5%. The fireball's power was increased by 25%. The effect was incredible. Ash calls Lily a flamethrower and tells her to take another shot. The girl complains and tells him to treat her like a human. The soldiers face the monsters with their own bodies. Lucas slashes them with his sword, while Lily burns them all with her magic. The wandering armors begin to fall apart. Everything falls silent. It's over. Then the soldiers begin to celebrate their victory. Ash shouts that it's not over yet. Lucas stares at him, panting. Then Ash tells them not to let their guard down. There's another enemy in sight. All the fallen enemy armors are absorbed by the huge creature that remains still in the sky. The boss absorbs them and begins to shape itself. Slowly, it takes on a solid physical form, until it becomes a huge wandering knight. It descends from the sky at high speed and lands on the ground, and everything shakes. Ash is in despair and wonders how that can be possible, and that this is a stage 1 boss. The enormous soul knight stands before them all. Ash stares at him up close. The boy is trembling, but soon regains his strength and confidence. He tries to control his fear. It's just a stage 1 boss. It doesn't go beyond level 25. The cannons begin firing at the huge creature. Ash shouts for them to fire with everything they've got and not to hold back. The monster is hit over and over again, but it seems to remain intact. Then it starts advancing. Ash orders them to keep firing before that soul knight reaches the wall. Despite all their fire attacks, the giant knight keeps advancing. Ash calls Lily and asks her to activate the third artifact. She activates it. It's an artificial mana amplifier. It can increase a character's mana by 100%. and the chosen one is Jupiter. The woman receives all that mana. Smiling, she says she feels young again. Ash shouts for her to use everything she's got and focus on that monster. The crown gets closer to the edge of the fortress and begins to use her magic and tells Ash to be careful not to get electrocuted. Huge thunderclouds form in the sky. She casts her lightning at the target. With all of her power, Jupiter strikes the giant knight. He screams in agony. His armor begins to fall apart, and a huge glowing blue sphere appears. It's the target. Ash calls Damien. The boy grabs a huge crossbow and aims at the blue sphere on the creature's chest. He pulls the trigger and fires the arrow, which hits the target directly. The sphere cracks until it is pierced. Ash celebrates. The spirit knight begins to lose energy and Ash thinks it's all over. But the enemy seems to rise again. Ash is shocked that it's still not enough. The monstrous knight grabs his sword and raises it before everyone. If he performs that strike, the fortress will be torn to pieces. Ash shouts for Jupiter. The old woman asks the creature why it's raising its sword in the middle of a storm. Through the Soul Knight's weapon, the lightning is guided. Jupiter yells that that idiot must be asking to get electrocuted. The monster takes a massive shock and is struck by a powerful attack from Jupiter. It starts to wobble and lose energy. Then it begins to fall toward the wall. Ash yells for everyone to be careful and to get out of the way. Lucas runs to Ash and shouts that they need to get out of there. The monster begins to fall on top of the fortress. It causes a great impact and throws soldiers away. After that, when the dust settles, Ash complains about back pain and Lucas asks if he's okay. Ash says yes and asks how the wall is. Everyone looks frightened. The monster's huge sword is stuck in the wall. Then the spirit knight begins to dissolve. He vanishes like smoke, and all of his armor falls to the ground outside the wall. There they defeated the stage 1 boss. All the spirits that form the enemies begin to rise together. Lucas tells Ash to be careful, but he says it's okay. He already knows that part, the final battle of the spirit knight, the crowd control tactic in wide areas that uses fear and confusion, but doesn't cause real damage even though it can corrupt your mind. Ash stares at the spirits and says that this is now human territory. He commands the monster to leave using his indomitable commander skill. A huge light forms and the spirits begin to dissolve until they completely disappear. The soldiers wonder where the giant monster and the spirits went. Then they conclude the prince sent them away. The clouds part, making way for sunlight. The Empire's flag flies in the wind. Ash raises his fists and shouts that they won and survived. He also shouts that they will keep winning and surviving. The soldiers and knights look at Ash without reaction. The fear is gone from their eyes. Lucas is happy. Ash watched the joy of victory fill the emptiness. Thanks to his passive abilities or imposing words, it makes no difference. Ash shouts that they will face the monsters and live. He simply commanded with all his sincerity. Stage 1 was cleared. Ash received the reward for it. He can check it in his inventory. Besides that, now he has a new character, Jupiter. In the afternoon following the battle, a banquet was held in the city's central square. Ash raises his cup and tells them to celebrate getting rid of those cruel monsters and coming out victorious. He makes a toast. Everyone raises their cups too. Ash yells for everyone to eat and drink as much as they want because it's all on him. The banquet begins, music plays, and people laugh. A lot of delicious food is prepared. Some have arm wrestling competitions. Ash watches everything from afar. He looks happy. Someone approaches and asks if he's okay. It's Lucas, who says he hasn't eaten anything all day, so he asks Ash to get some food. He says that's not the face of a commander who won the battle. They dealt with 1,000 wandering armors without taking major damage. That should make him at least a little happy. Ash says they really didn't suffer major damage. While taking a sip of what's in his cup, he immediately spits out everything he put in his mouth. Lucas asks if he's okay. Ash says yes, that drink just doesn't taste like he imagined. He had thought it was beer, but it has at least 20% alcohol. Ash continues what he was saying, that they didn't take major damage, but they lost precious lives. When lives are lost, there's no point in talking about how big the impact was because all lives have equal importance. Of course, he knows it's not possible to save everyone, especially in that game, but even so, he could have been a little more careful and lives wouldn't have been lost. The battle was different from the tutorial, which relied on improvisation. He lowers his cup. That is the sad reality, and he is suffering a lot from realizing it. Lucas says Ash did a great job and there's no reason for him to blame himself. But he knows saying that won't make the regrets go away even so. That's a victory banquet. If he looks down, the soldiers will lose their strength. So Lucas asks Ash to smile and try to be happy. At least in that moment, that's just another part of his job as commander. Ash thinks about smiling being part of his job as commander. Ider appears out of nowhere and yells that Lucas is right, startling Ash. With a plate full of food, Ider says it's good to think about those who are gone, but it's also necessary to take a moment to celebrate victory. Since eating only meat is not good for Ash's health, Ider brought him various vegetables even though the boy hadn't eaten any meat up to that point. Happy, Ider congratulates Ash for clearing stage 1. He did a great job in a difficult stage. He hopes Ash keeps up the good work. The boy picks up a tomato and Eider shouts that His Highness is eating vegetables. Ash is confused and Eider keeps shouting that His Highness only eats fruits and vegetables because there is no meat here. Everyone panics and apologizes to Ash. They bring all kinds of meat to the boy and say that should never have happened, since he's known for only eating meat, and Ash questions what kind of life he used to have. A man yells for everyone to bring some meat to His Highness and more drinks too. Everyone starts celebrating with Ash in the middle. The boy wonders how things got to that point. He only sat down to reflect a bit about the day's battle. Someone calls for Ash. It's Lily, who is trembling. She starts shaking and begs Ash to please let her retire, smiling. The boy says she needs to keep working. He doesn't understand how she wants to retire in the current financial situation, and he promised to pay her more 200 figures see Lily and take her away. While the girl screams that she wants to retire, Damien giggles and calls for Ash. The boy says that water tastes strange and starts laughing. Ash says that's not water and wonders who gave alcohol to that child. Next to Damien is Jupiter, filling his cup. Ash asks what she's doing with that child, and the old woman replies that Damien is a respectable mercenary who needs to learn how to drink, smoke, and spend money. Jupiter says she'll take good care of him like a grandson. Ash asks why she would teach that to a grandson and says she's a rotten grandma. Damien giggles and leans on Ash's shoulder. He asks how the boy dares to lean on the prince and says Damien has guts. Damien looks downcast and says he keeps seeing the face of his dead friend. He can't stop thinking about that day, and the thought that he doesn't deserve to live haunts him every night. But somehow, when he's with Ash, he feels at ease, so he wants to stay with His Highness. Damien collapses onto the table. Ash thinks that it's not because he's an amazing human being. It's just because he has a passive skill, but he can't reveal that. Jupiter says, smiling, that she also felt her mana get stronger when she followed Ash and wonders if it's thanks to his impressive leadership. But Ash knows it's all thanks to his special team synergy skill. In that battle, he used a 25% buff. However, he can't say that either. Lucas says that he also, when he's with Ash, stops thinking about useless things and feels like a weight is lifted from his shoulders. Ash is surprised and asks if that's why Lucas never leaves his side. Shy, he replies that he doesn't know, and Ash didn't expect that answer from a model knight like Lucas. People toast to fallen comrades and to the living as well, and in the end, they also toast to Ash. Everyone gathers around Ash, who asks what's going on, and a man says his mug looks full. The boy says he's not feeling very well. People start to worry and cry, apologizing to the boy and saying they didn't try hard enough at the banquet. Ash was famous for always drinking. The boy wonders how someone can be famous for drinking all week and what kind of life that Prince used to live. The men scream that they don't deserve to live and for Ash to eliminate them. The boy asks them to calm down, that they want the prince to drink. Ash drinks the entire mug and yells that now that they've forced the commander to drink, they better be happy with the consequences. Everyone refills their mugs, and the party continues. While the moon was in the sky, they ate, drank, sang, and talked. Their night of victory was deep. Ash opens the door complaining that he's drunk. He sits on the bed and thinks it would be a good idea to open the reward chest before sleeping. So he opens the first chest. The boy wonders if that's a full gear set, then pulls a glove out of the chest. Ash starts smiling. He can hardly believe it's real. He trembles before the chest and says that can't be serious. Out of all the rare SSR level weapons, he got the Lucky Strike glove. It gives him 1% extra chance in gambling games. For that glove, its damage is determined by a roulette. He used it for entertainment during his live streams, but it's completely useless in the real game. He drops the glove on the ground and says that at least he got something. It's not like he can't sell it or give it to someone. He puts the glove on and thinks it feels like part of his skin. Maybe he'll want to play slots at some point in the future. He needs to stay positive. Even so, Ash is angry. There are several items that can make the game 100 times easier. How is he supposed to think positively about that? He also bought a gold item just to agonize over it all night before sleeping. The next day in the afternoon, Ash wakes up and opens his door. He asks for someone to help him. Lucas approaches, happy that Ash is awake. The boy asks if Lucas is okay and says he should have taken the morning off. Lucas asks how he could do that being his bodyguard, but he's visibly hungover. Eider approaches and shouts good morning to Ash. The boy wonders why that idiot always seems so lively. He brought hot water with honey for Ash and Lucas. The two drink, excited, and start feeling better again. Ash thinks they should prepare for the next stage. They go to the wall to see what will be done with the giant sword that's stuck in it. Ash says that at this point they won't be able to block wild animals, let alone monsters, and asks how long it will take to repair the wall. The person in charge says probably more than 2 weeks because removing that sword won't be easy. The next stage starts in 9 days and 20 hours. Ash says that all soldiers who aren't injured should help repair the fortress starting the next day. They need to be quick. The boy asks Eider how the military expansion is going. A neighboring city will send soldiers soon, and the messenger who went to the capital is returning the next day. That means they can't do anything until the next day. He can control everything, but the military forces are out of reach. He can only hope reinforcements arrive. So Ash tells Eider to report anything that happens to him and that he and Lucas will do what they can for now. The boy says they must go to the dungeon to destroy the source from where those monsters are coming. Lucas asks if they're going to teleport to the lake again, and Ash agrees. But this time, they're going directly under that lake with the team. It's time to change the game's genre from tower defense to dungeon battle. Ash shouts that everyone is dismissed and asks them to rest, as they must be ready the next day. To the team members, Ash only said they're going on an expedition the next morning. It's better to take them to see it with their own eyes than to try to explain. Damien says goodbye happy. Lily is crying. Ash feels bad, but the dungeon is made for 5 people, so he can't leave her spot open. Ash asks Eider to prepare supplies for the expedition. The attendant asks what he should prepare, and Ash says food, camping materials, and lots of potions. Also lanterns, lamps, and torches. Basically anything that emits light. The next morning in the back garden of the Lord's residence at the crossroads, Jupiter says she feels like this is more than just an expedition and asks where they are going. As the stones on the ground begin to reshape, Ash says they'll see soon. The portal opens again and Jupiter is shocked. She says that spell was lost hundreds of years ago and asks how he managed it. Ash thinks she'll understand everything once they proceed with the expedition. Ash says they'll be teleported to the monster's base. They're going into the Black Lake, which is where their kingdom lies. They need to scout that place, and that way they might discover why the monsters are coming from there. Only then will they be able to end the monster invasions once and for all. By destroying the root cause of the invasions, it's the game's objective. Ash says he will show them the way, so everyone must follow him. He selects in the system where he wants to go. Lucas yells for Ash to let him go first, but the boy has already entered the portal. He knows it's safe. A tip appears saying that experience points improve the hero's performance in battles. Ash complains that that's useless information. They arrive at the destination. Jupiter is shocked. They are in front of the lake. Ash asks if Jupiter has been there before. She says yes, 20 years ago, when the Imperial Army was still stationed at the crossroads, they were ordered to fill the lake with mud. Ash asks if she tried to fill that huge lake with mud and says it seems like the commander from 20 years ago was stupid. The magic course was dispatched to bring the mud that would be used to fill the lake, but it didn't work. No matter how much mud they put in the lake, it devoured everything. As a result, a rumor spread through the Imperial Army that the lake was connected to hell itself. Then, a week later, their mission began. Swarms of monsters emerged, the whole army folded, and they failed to complete the mission. She hadn't come close since then. Ash says they better get ready, because they're going in deep. The system asks if Ash wants to enter the lake's kingdom, and he selects yes. A warning appears saying he won't be able to go back after accessing the next base and asking if he's sure. Ash wonders if they think this is his first time playing that game and selects that he wants to proceed anyway. The lake starts to move. That whirlpool forms in the middle of it. It's the dungeon entrance. Ash yells for them to advance and jumps into the lake. As they enter the dungeon, a tip appears saying the main reason players lose the game is lack of caution. Down below, it's dark. That was Ash's first impression, pure darkness. You can't see a hand in front of his face, but he hears something coming from the shadows. He can feel the darkness moving closer to him. Someone calls for His Highness. It's Lucas asking where he is. Ash says he's right there. Then he tells everyone to calm down and turn on the lights. Lucas lights his torch. Then everyone else does the same. A strange noise persists. Lily asks what that is, startled. Lucas and Jupiter are also alarmed. Then Lucas asks Ash where they are. Ash replies that this is the stranded kingdom of the lake, the dungeon beneath the lake. In other words, it's the home of the monsters they need to clear right now. The group is in the lake kingdom. Ash thinks that he can breathe and there are no limitations on his movements, probably because an ancient spell surrounds the city. Lily asks how such a large city can exist beneath a lake and how they can move around so easily. Lucas tells her to be quiet because something is approaching. Some footsteps head toward the group. A silhouette appears on the horizon and everyone prepares to attack. The hooded person keeps walking toward the group. Ash tells them not to be scared because she doesn't seem to be an enemy. Since they just arrived in the dungeon, she must be an NPC who will show the way. The person stops in front of them and asks if they're here to steal the treasures of the Lake Kingdom. Ash is confused. Then the blue-eyed girl says they won't find what they're looking for there and suggests they return to the surface while they're still alive. The MC is nervous. He's never seen her before. There's no NPC like that in the game. This is the dungeon beneath the lake that became hell. More than 100 NPCs live there. When a random NPC appears, it's to show the way. But he's never seen that person in the 742 times he played the game. Even so, he decides to try. Ash says they came from the shore above to destroy the source of the monsters. The girl stays silent, serious. Then Ash continues, saying that people on the surface are suffering because of the monsters that come from that place, and they're there to stop it. With a bored look, the girl says the nightmare of the Lake Kingdom will never end. No one can wake from it. ever. Superior warriors and countless heroes have tried to end the Lake Kingdom, but all have failed. She tells them not to set foot in the darkness and to return to the surface before it's too late, and they're swallowed by the abyss and lose their minds. Ash thinks that if that weren't enough to make him turn back, he would have quit this game a long time ago. He introduces himself as the Lord of the Crossroads and says it's his duty to protect the city. It's his duty to protect humanity from the monsters. So the darkness doesn't scare him, he needs to enter there and destroy the source of the monsters. And that's why they're there, but they can't pass because of that door. Finally, he asks if she could show them another way, and she looks at him in silence for a few moments and says she'll keep her eyes on Ash to see if his words come from sincere courage or reckless bravery. The girl starts walking and tells them to follow her to the entrance. Ash asks what he can call her. With a sad face, she says she forgot what her name is, but if he needs to call her something, he can call her Nameless. They followed Nameless outside the walls for about 20 minutes. Lucas says they shouldn't be following a mysterious person, this can only be a trap, but Ash says it's fine. The group keeps walking until Nameless says they've arrived. She turns to Ash and says that will take them inside the city. It looks like a drainage tunnel. Nameless says the ground is slippery and they should be careful. So the group walked through the sewer for 5 minutes until they came out somewhere. They're in District 1, the dry sewer. It's the first district of the kingdom. That's where everything from the city is drained, but it's completely dry. Ash moves the stones magically, forming a portal. The system informs that Ash is connected to the base of the drained sewer. The base refers to a safe zone where monsters can't enter. It seems they can begin now. The system presents destination options: the lake raft, the drained sewer, and the region beyond the limits. Lily asks to leave because she's scared, but Ash refuses. He didn't prepare all those supplies to stop there. Nameless says her job there is done, and they're on their own from now on. Ash thanks her for the help. Before leaving, Nameless says she needs to warn him that the Lake Kingdom is completely taken over by nightmares. The deeper you go, the darker it gets, which means the monsters will become more powerful. But if they want to proceed to the abyss, she has a piece of advice to give. Nameless tells them never to put out their torches. Ash remains silent. Then Nameless wishes them luck on the rest of their journey. Leaving the same way they entered, Lucas asks who that woman was and how she lives in that city beneath the lake. Damien complains to Ash that the darkness is scary and can't see anything even with his special eyes. It's almost like the darkness is alive, worried. Damien asks how that woman can walk around without any lighting. Ash can't answer him, because that dungeon is full of secrets. Not even he, the person who beat the game in Hell's Iron Man mode, knows, but one thing he is sure of: Ash says they'll definitely meet her again and can ask Nameless anything they want. They'll see each other again, whether as friends, enemies, or something else. Looking at the group, he asks if they're ready. They've completed the base preparation. The system shows a progress window in District 1. They've been in 0 out of 3 rooms and defeated 0 out of 1 boss. Considering his team's power, they'll be able to clear it without trouble. So they move forward. Lucas comments that this is a corridor connected to the sewer and asks how far Ash thinks it is. The boy says they'll reach the end soon. Dungeons are typically made of rooms and corridors. Rooms are where battles happen, and also where you find items or NPCs. They're looking for the event they should encounter upon entering the first room. A huge rat emerges from the darkness. There are 14 level 3 rats they need to defeat. Ash thinks they shouldn't underestimate them because of the number, but they won't be hard to beat. Lily screams, desperate and afraid of the rats. Ash tells Lucas to take the lead, hold his position, and take down any that get too close. Calling Damien, he tells him those pests have thick skulls, so he needs to aim for the neck or eyes. They'll preserve the mage's firepower for later. They should only attack those who get past Lucas's defense line. Meanwhile, Ash observes everything. With quick movements, Lucas takes down the rats. Damien hits the rats easily. In no time, the rats are annihilated. Ash says that was easy. Damien agrees. Lucas says there are 13 of them and asks if he should collect the mana stones. Ash starts to say no, but something catches his attention. They defeated 13 rats, but the system said there were 14. A rat suddenly attacks Ash from behind. Ash screams and runs away. His damage roulette starts spinning. The result is numbers 1, 2, and 1. Ash throws the rat away. The creature hits the wall, getting crushed. Everyone is impressed. It was all thanks to his lucky strike glove, but that doesn't usually happen. Lucas asks if Ash is okay, and he says yes. Then the knight asks what that was and how he finished the monster in a single move. Ash thinks about it. He can't reveal anything compromising. To get out of it, he says that was the punch of a prince, and everyone is confused. Calmly, Ash says that when royals find themselves in emergencies, they can adopt superpowers. He hopes that excuse sticks. Lucas is impressed. The others don't understand what's going on, but they let it go. The system informs that they've reached the second room of the drained sewer. This location is empty. Ash says something might be hidden somewhere and asks them to check everything around. Damien says he found something, and Ash celebrates. It's a chest. The boy thanks him but asks Damien to be careful. It could be a trap. Jupiter runs desperately toward the chest. Her obsession with gold trait has been activated. Ash gets worried about that crazy old woman's greed if it turns out to be a trap. She opens the chest and a bright light comes out of it. It seems to be just a treasure chest. Then Jupiter realizes what she's doing. She apologizes and says she can't help herself when she smells money. Smiling, she hands the treasure chest to Ash. He saw that she pocketed a few coins. In room 3 of the drained sewer, there are 12 level 3 rats. After conquering that space easily, they finally reach the last room. The group stops in front of a gate. The next room is the boss room. They'll return to the crossroads as soon as they clear that room, so they need to hold strong. The door opens, and they enter. Inside are several dead rats. The smell is horrible. A huge creature is sitting in the middle of the room. It says there are too many rats, and it needs to catch them and exterminate them. The monster is a giant rat that screams the Lake Kingdom must remain clean and good. Damien asks if that monster is talking. The creature hears him and turns, saying it thought it had finished off all the rats. The system informs that Ash must defeat the boss. He is level 15 and is a giant rat man. He lets out a scream and says the rats keep appearing no matter how many he annihilates. Ash recognizes him. It's the sewer manager, Pele. He wonders why a rat man has a human name. Advancing, the enemy screams that he'll finish them all off. Ash gets nervous and thinks he needs to give an order. Lily casts her flame power at the creature. The rat man begins to roll on the ground, screaming in pain because he's on fire. Desperate, Lily keeps using her magic and yells at the monster to stay away from her, until the creature is unresponsive, lying on the ground. She says Lily is a horrible rat. Jupiter says she'll put an end to that, and wishes the rat man sweet dreams as she casts a lightning bolt at his head. The monster is electrocuted all over its body and screams desperately. It falls to the ground, lifeless. Ash thinks about how fast that was. The boss suffered a quick death thanks to the combination of 2 mages. Just like he expected from the first monster that appeared in the game, it had no magic resistance. They would have had a hard time if they had used only physical attacks. Lily asks if they can leave now. Ash agrees but tells the girl to calm down. She says she can't because there are rat corpses everywhere. They head to the boss's reward chest. Ash asks Lucas to hold Jupiter. The old lady yells for him to put her down and have respect for the elderly. Ash opens the chest, excited. Then he finds a sword. It's the very useful rat sword. He gives it to Lucas, who gets excited and thanks him. It's nothing compared to his favorite sword. Ash tells him to always keep it visible in case it's useful at some point. Lucas agrees. He searches the chest, thinking there's another reward, then finds a scroll that teaches the auto defense discharge skill. It's a fixed drop from District 1. He came there just for that reward. Ash announces that they should get out of there. Lily celebrates. The system informs that all rooms of District 1 drained sewer have been cleared. Once they walk through the corridor before the boss room, they find the end of the sewer. That's where the true Lake Kingdom begins in District 2, the hidden alley. Ash is startled by the size of it. There are too many streets to believe it's just a corridor. That's a city of advanced magic, the true nature of the stranded Lake Kingdom. In any case, there's no light in that city, not a single living soul. There's not much movement in that ocean of darkness. A lamp post lights up. Ash is connected to the base of District 2. The system informs that he cannot access the next region. Ash didn't intend to go there that day anyway, because they would be eaten alive. Looking at the group, he says they did a good job and that's all for the day. Using teleportation, he asks to return to the Lord's residence. The system grants an item to Ash and displays the character's level statuses. A man in a hat appears under the lamppost. He wonders if that's the last player and says he's surprised the guy was so fast. The man blows a flute, and hundreds of rats appear. Then the man tells them to repent for their sins. Amidst a swarm of rats, he says it's for the Lake Kingdom. The team exits the portal back to the crossroads. Ash says they did a good job and tells them to get some rest. Jupiter says she won't be able to rest. She can barely believe there's a city under the lake. She can't grasp what's going on. Besides that darkness is definitely abnormal. Looking at Ash, she asks if he has anything else to share with the group, but he says not at the moment. He may have beaten the entire game, but he never figured out why the Lake Kingdom ended up that way when he played. This time something hit him. He had a feeling he needs to go into that city and uncover the truth. That's why they must imagine it together, step by step. Jupiter comments she doesn't think she'll stay sober tonight. She needs a drink. Lily agrees and says she'll go with Jupiter. She doesn't think she can sleep without getting drunk. Then Jupiter takes Lily away, saying she'll show her a really cool pub. Damien says he's going back to the temple. He gets scared just thinking about the darkness. But maybe praying can help him. Ash agrees and tells the boy to get some rest. Ash tells Lucas they should get out of there and rest a bit too. Lucas asks why Ash is going back to the dungeon and not to the next defense ward. He questions whether they shouldn't be looking for the next monster. Ash says they already did that. The monsters they defeated are called the Sewer Rat Army, and this army will emerge from the Lake Kingdom. First, they'll occupy the exploration zone, and once they pass the critical point, they'll immerse in the lake. Then they crawl and invade the city. The monsters they encountered during free exploration are part of the army they'll face in the next defense war. Lucas is impressed. Entering the palace, Ash shouts for Eider that they're back and asks if the butler prepared food and a bath for them. Eider runs up and says Ash is in big trouble. The young man asks what happened. Then Eider says they're out of reinforcements. The capital and the nearby city said they won't send any reinforcements. Ash questions why. Lucas's stomach growls. He apologizes. Ash thinks about what's the point of hearing that right now. Seems like there's nothing they can do about it. Ash says they'll talk about it the next day and asks Eider to bring them food. The next day, Ash asks what Eider meant by no reinforcements. He explains that the Western Front has been at war with the enemy country recently, so they transferred all available soldiers to the capital and other regions to prepare for war. That's why there are no reinforcements left. Ash thinks that's strange. The Empire is always at war. They're always fighting neighboring countries day and night all year round. At this time, they pulled soldiers from remote areas, especially now when he requested reinforcements. Ash asks if Eider hired any new mercenaries. He replies that he's in the process, but there aren't many. It's only been a few days since the last battle, so it's not reasonable to expect the new mercenary slots to have been filled. He wonders what to do, then asks why Eider is laughing and if he knows where to get more soldiers. The butler replies that he does, but it's going to be a headache. Ash doesn't care. All that matters is winning the next stage. He wants to know where to get more soldiers. Eider tells him to follow. They get on the horses. Lucas asks Eider where they're going. The servant says to the former lord, they're going to Marquis Cruz's estate. You might wonder what Margrave is. Basically, it defines who crosses the border. Since the wall protects the border from enemy countries, monsters, and disasters, they have more authority. But they're not just a powerful local clan, they're commanded by whoever is responsible for defending the region in question. Count Cross has commanded the crossroads ever since people started arriving there. Even the fortress bore the name of the Count's castle. The road was built by the Cross family and the fortress was made on top of it. They are a family of reputation that has protected their home since the fortress was built. Ash questions why the Marquis gave up being a lord. That southern frontier is completely separated from the Empire's capital. In other words, the Marquis has more authority there than the Emperor. But he gave up his title of Lord and asked the ruler to be sent to the capital, which is why Ash became the new Lord. Ash doesn't understand why he gave up the sacred land that had been passed down through generations in his family. Eider says that's a long story, but it's better to hear it from the man himself. They arrive at a huge house and Eider announces that this is the place. That is the Cross family Count's villa. The Marquis moved there after giving up his position as Lord. The place is overgrown with plants. Ash asks if anyone really lives there. Eider says yes, and that he himself sends supplies there when needed. An old man appears and asks who's there. He gets furious and yells, asking Habiers to invade his home, then tells him to get out. Eider approaches the man, asking how he is and introducing himself to jog his memory. Cross realizes it's his former employee. Ash wonders what Eider is talking about. He doesn't believe that man is the Marquis. That drunk old man is the original lord of that city. Eider says he brought a guest for the Marquis, who replies that he already told the boy not to bring anyone there, but Eider insists he talk to Ash for a moment. Then he introduces him as Prince Ash, the new lord. Ash clears his throat and says it's a pleasure to meet Marquis Cross. He's the Emperor's youngest son and new lord of the Crossroads. Even being irresponsible, he treats Cross formally. It feels strange to him, but he has to add some formality. Someone of lower rank can't speak improperly to someone high rank. Ash says he came to consult the Marquis about something, but Cross tells him to go away. The boy is confused. The old man yells at Ash to get out of there. The young man thinks that Guy has crossed the line. The Black Empire follows strict caste systems. Even if the Marquis once had authority over that place, how can he treat a prince like that? Furious, Ash asks how he dares, and says he'll teach the old man who's in charge there, but the Marquis isn't fazed and grabs his weapons. In the Black Empire, everything is based on caste systems. What does it mean to raise arms against royalty? Cross shouts for Ash to scram. That old man must be out of his mind. When confronted by a madman, it's better to avoid him. Once again, the old man yells for Ash to leave while he still hasn't attacked him. The boy says he'll come back and hopes they can have a proper conversation. The man, furious, rants for Ash never to return and to leave him alone. Ash holds Lucas back from attacking the old man. The full name of the Marquis is Charles Cross. He never appears directly in the game Protect the Empire, but Ash remembers him for one reason. Because he is the father of the most powerful weapon in that game, Evangeline Cross. She has top-tier performance. Ash thinks he needs to persuade that drunkard no matter what. If everything goes well, he'll end up getting several new recruits. The young man asks Eider if that man can complement their military strength. The servant says the Marquis has his own army. He has soldiers who have given their lives to him. If Ash can convince the Marquis, their personnel problem will be solved. Ash says he'll do anything to coerce the old man, but he won't even let him come close or talk privately. Eider says there is a way, a special method for drunkards to approach each other. Ash thinks he wants to live an honest life, but that world won't leave him alone. At the Marquis's house, Ash yells for him. The old man asks angrily if the boy is trying to make a last request. He made it clear he didn't want him there anymore. But Ash has a cart, which piques the old man's curiosity. He uncovers several bottles of liquor and asks what that looks like. Smiling, Ash says it's his favorite. Ash is a useless bastard. In other words, a playboy prince who loves extravagant parties full of booze where he embarrasses everyone. So of course there's no way someone like that would show up empty-handed. That's why he prepared a significant amount of alcohol. Ash lifts a bottle and invites Marcus Cross for a drink. The old man accepts and tells Ash to come in and bring everything he has with him. Fortunately, the old man is predictable. Meanwhile, Lily is having nightmares about Ash. Cross opens the door to his house and invites the young man in. He enters that huge place with a cart full of drinks. He starts walking further inside. The floor is covered in empty bottles. That place reeks of alcohol. The Marquis sets 2 glasses on the counter and says he hasn't drunk with anyone in years. Ash asks if those glasses are clean. Cross says the house may be a mess, but the glasses are always clean. It's a common courtesy for drinkers. He grabs a bottle to see what Ash brought and is impressed by the original Imperial Peacemaker whiskey. It's very rare and precious. Peacemaker is the Emperor's middle name. That drink was made to celebrate his coronation. In other words, it's very expensive. Since he brought those drinks there, the old man better treat him well. Ash is sure he got the message. He toasts while the old man is already downing his glass. The Marquis gets very happy, saying it's amazing and goes down smoothly. Ash asks how he's going to appreciate the drink if he drinks it that fast, and the old man says he drinks cheap booze, so he needs to drink the expensive stuff the same way to make a comparison. The young man is speechless. He doesn't understand liquor, so he doesn't know if the old man is right or not. Then he says he wants to talk with the Marquis, but the old man tells Ash not to change the subject. He should drink and leave, and suggests Ash leave if he wants to talk about anything else. The young man asks at least for some snacks. Ash thinks about how he's putting all that liquor into an empty stomach. What a stupid drunkard. Cross throws a bag of shriveled stuff on the table. They're dried fruits made from ones he picked from his own orchard. Ash asks if he has an orchard. Then the old man tells Ash to look out the window. It's right behind the residence. It's small, and he maintains it to pass the time. Ash thanks him for the food. But as soon as he tastes it, he spits out the fruit, then asks what the hell that was. It's bitter and reeks. Ash doesn't know how anyone eats that. The Marquis says he picked and dried those fruits with all his heart and asks how Ash dares spit them out. But as soon as he puts one in his mouth, he spits it out too. It's terrible. Cross says it tastes like garbage. Then he pushes the little bag to Ash and tells him to take it as a gift, and the young man asks why the old man is giving him that. The man replies that since he can't eat it, he's giving it to Ash. Otherwise, he wouldn't. Ash is speechless. He knows the Marquis is spouting nonsense, but there's still a strange kind of conviction in it. Charles Cross says the crossroads lies in the southernmost part of the continent, so it gets plenty of sun and is rich in oils. There's no better land for growing fruit. Ash asks why the fruit tastes so awful then, and he replies that he's heard other crops besides fruit will flourish if he cultivates farmland, but only if the monster's hands are wiped from the area. They don't just destroy the farms and slaughter farmers. When they die, they spread their dark mana underground. What happens next is obvious. The entire area becomes tainted, the soil rots, and everything planted dies. The old man says that's why there are no orchards or farms near the crossroads. The Marquis looks at his glass with a conflicted gaze. He looked at the golden imperial liquor made from grains and fruit that can't grow there. Ash asks why the Marquis insists on maintaining an orchard. He replies that everyone lives with a bit of useless hope. That orchard is his. He can't even get drunk when he wants to anymore. Ash asks if the old man knows why he's there. Cross says he already told the boy to leave, he's going to chatter. Slamming the bottle on the table, Ash shouts for him to throw him out if he's a man, but he's going to say what he came here to say. The monsters have started stirring again in absurd numbers. Last time, 1,000 wandering armors invaded. They managed to defend, but the castle walls were seriously damaged, and they have few soldiers. So they desperately need reinforcements. Ash says he needs the soldiers under Marquis Cross's command. The old man says he has no soldiers under his command. Ash says he knows his family has soldiers. He explains that what he had were longtime friends who he selected and trained before they fought wars together. But when he stepped down from his position as lord, then he retired his shield and sword, and the others did the same. They all retired. Ash asks Cross to call them back, but the old man says it's no use. He says that land doesn't deserve to be protected. Ash is shocked by the statement. Charles Cross tells Ash not to sacrifice lives for that worthless land and asks the young man to tell his people to flee from there. The man whose family protected that land for generations is saying those words. The old man asks the prince to listen closely and questions what brought him to that land. He says everything there is dying. There's no hope or future. That is his warning as someone who wasted his life protecting that place. The sooner Ash leaves the crossroads, the better, before that cursed land consumes him. Ash finds Lucas outside the house, who asks if he managed to convince the old man, but the young man says he failed, though he received a gift. Then he says he didn't expect to solve it all in a single day anyway. Lucas asks if he's going to keep going there, and Ash replies that it's worth the effort. Ash asks if something happened to Marcus Cross. It seems like something huge struck him, so he questions if Lucas knows anything. The knight says no. The young man comments that Eider wanted him to hear this from the Marcus himself, that damn steward. Ash concludes by saying they should do what they can until they manage to convince the old man. What they can do right now is repair the wall and prepare to fight. No matter what hand of cards he's holding, the monsters will keep invading. All he can do is wipe them out in the most efficient and fast way possible. Ash tells them to return to the crossroads. There's a lot to be done. The system announces Stage 2 and the enemy information. There are 3 monsters of unknown level, and the number of level 5 giant rats keeps increasing, until it stops at 3,251 rats. The next morning, a man explains to Ash that they destroyed the giant sword that was there and will begin repairing the wall that day. Cross laughs, and Ash asks if he's in love. Looking at the glass of liquor, he replies that he once was. With his wife, she was the only person he loved his whole life, but she died 3 years ago. Ash is startled. The Marcus explains that she was torn apart by monsters in the orchard, so her burial had to be in a closed casket. The drink sits still on the table. There's a misfortune passed from lord to lord. Ash can call it a curse. Between that city and the people one cares for, there always comes a time when you have to choose one or the other. There's never been an exception. None of the previous lords, not his grandfather or father, could change that fate. Cross begins to tremble and says his time came too. For the last 10 years, the monsters had been dormant. The city was peaceful, and the economy was struggling. Due to financial hardships, they needed to start a new venture. That's when his wife suggested they plant crops in the land south of the dungeon. Ash asks if that was outside the dungeon. The northern land was targeted by attacks, so the empty south seemed like a good idea. Since monsters appeared less frequently, there was little contamination in the soil, so he thought it was worth a try. They expanded the southern farm. The rumor about that land's fertility spread, bringing in refugees from other lands. Since there were few monsters, they could defend against them without issue. Things were good for a while. That orchard was planted in the southernmost area, and the lord's wife decided to replant trees and cultivate the land. Cross remembers the grapes she handed him to eat with her own hands. The fruits from the first year weren't the best, but they tasted sweeter than anything else in the world, so for a moment he had hope. Hope that they could spend their lives farming and harvesting fruit instead of annihilating monsters. He hoped they could continue just like that. Little did he know that was impossible. That was 2 years after the settlement. They heard that 100 giant monsters were heading toward the city, so he rushed back there. His wife, who was taking care of the orchard, said goodbye to him, asking him to be careful. Cross falls silent for a moment. He only found out upon reaching the city that those monsters had split into 2 groups. More than a dozen monsters broke off from the main group and entered the occupied land. The main group was already attacking the city, so he had to make a choice. Save his wife in the occupied land or protect the tens of thousands of citizens in the crossroads. Looking at Ash, Cross asks what he thinks the old man chose. Ash replies that he chose the city. He confirms, just like his family did for generations, he chose the city according to his rules and principles. He lopped the wall and fought the monsters. After hours of battle, they managed to drive the creatures away, and he rode back to the occupied land on horseback. The fields were in ruins, and everyone was lifeless. Hundreds of people had been torn apart by a dozen monsters. His wife and the orchard met the same end. Marquis Cross had been devoted to his duties, but in return, he lost what he held most dear. The old man wonders what the problem had been: the defensive lines that weren't strong enough to fight giant monsters, or the expansion to the south outside the fortress. Everything was his mistake. What bothers him most is the fact that he chose the city over his wife. His daughter said he was crazy. She never understood why he chose the city over her mother. She left a few days later. In the end, that's what he gained for protecting the city. His wife is dead, his daughter is gone, and he's rotting there alone. And that's just one example for Ash. Cross asks if the young man knows what people call that place. Ash asks if it's the City of the Grave. The old man confirms that Cursed City was built on death and will force him to make the same decision. A time will come when he'll have to sacrifice what he cherishes most to protect the city. It felt more like Cross was telling a prophecy than a curse, as if he was warning him ahead of time about a cause and effect conclusion. The Marquis says his family has always endured that sacrifice, but it ends now. He's not going to pass that duty on to his daughter. Ash realizes. Cross gave up his position so he wouldn't have to pass it on to his daughter. He wants his daughter to leave that cursed land and have a joyful and peaceful life. The old man is doing everything he can to keep Evangeline Cross away from the front lines, while Ash wants to recruit her to his team. Then Cross refills his glass and says that Ash came there to ask for help to protect the city. He places the bottle on the table and says he protected that city for too long and lost what he loved most because of it. That's why he wants to stop. In the reflection in his glass, there's no trace of pride left for having protected the fortress. Cross says he wants to die in that orchard, not on top of the wall. His gaze only reveals his regret for having failed to protect his wife. Cross asks if that's enough of an answer as to why he doesn't want help. He only told Ash the truth because he's grateful for his company. Now he can go. The old man just gives him one warning. When the time comes, he should choose wisely so he doesn't regret his decision like he did. It's been 5 days since the wall repairs began, and only 2 days remain until the next stage. Ash says everyone did a good job. He brought out a table of food and tells them to take a break. Everyone starts saying Ash is the best. The young man tells them to eat and then get back to work. Ash asks the leader how the repairs are going. The old man says that thanks to the labor Ash provided, they'll be done soon. The wall will be repaired in 2 days. The hardest part is over. Looking at the alchemist leader, Ash says they should install something. The man gets excited. That's a magical summoning scroll acquired in the last mission. It can only be used after being studied by an alchemist. The system asks if Ash wants to use the automatic defense tower scroll. The young man says yes, then uses the scroll. The automatic defense tower has been summoned. That should do the trick. Finally is an R-rank mana hack that he got from the last reward chest. It completes the materials he needs. The system asks Ash to select the installation location for the automatic defense. The boy selects the entrance to the city. Suddenly, the rubble begins to move. They crash together and form something. It's a massive stone cannon. It moves on its own through magic. Ash says it's beautiful, and the alchemist leader says it looks like magical architecture lost for hundreds of years. Ash says their defense line is getting stronger and stronger thanks to them, then tells everyone to get back to work. The workers seem happy and excited. The young man hopes they keep that positive energy. The next place to visit will be the blacksmith's house. Ash asks how things are going. Lucas says, excited that things couldn't be better. The armor they ordered is ready. That's the armor they made using the mana hack from the Spirit Knight. Its users have durability increased by 33% and gain the spiritual form attribute. The spiritual form makes the person untouchable for 5 seconds, but they also can attack anyone during that time. Lucas thanks Ash, and the young man says it's all right. He ordered that armor just so Lucas could use it. He also cried when he went there to get his measurements. Ash thinks he should give him more gifts from now on. Ash thanks the blacksmith for the armor, and he says there's no need to thank him. He's happy to work with such good material after so long. If the young man gives him more jobs, he'll do his best. The blacksmith's house is level 3. Since the beginning, the equipment made by the forge has been essential to his strategy. He'll be visiting that place often. Ash calls for Lucas and tells him they're going to the west side of the city. There's an important event they need to attend. The western field of the fortress city. Gunshots in honor of the fallen fill the sky. The funeral begins for those soldiers who died in the last battle. Beneath the graves, the coffins have been buried. There weren't that many deaths in this last stage. Ash wonders if that's a good or a bad thing. The chorus sings. The young man stands before the graves. The ceremony ends quickly. Only Ash and Lucas stayed at the cemetery until nightfall. Someone approaches and says that Ash is wasting a large part of the city for funerals. He also heard that Ash is giving funds to the families. It's Marcus Cross, who says Ash is spending like a true king. But that's a front line against monsters. The loss of life is a regular thing. A time will come when he won't be able to maintain that generosity. Ash lowers his head and asks if the old man came there just to say that. Or if there's something else, maybe he's out of liquor. Cross says he can always get more liquor. Sometimes he goes to the city to buy more, but he's there for another reason. He asked his old friends what they think and how they feel about helping protect the city. Ash asks what they answered. Cross says they agree to protect the city one more time. The young man celebrates and says that's the best news he's heard all week. Cross says he doesn't know how useful those old knights will be, but they're rearming and he'll transfer their command to Ash. The old man asks the boy to be careful with them. They're old too. Ash doesn't even care, he's too excited and thanks Cross. The old man says the boys should thank the men, not him. Cross had been so stubborn, Ash didn't know what else to do, but he helped. Ash is both surprised and grateful. Ash says it's all thanks to Cross. The old man says it seems like he did everything he could. Then he asks Ash to take good care of that city and wishes him luck. Happy, Ash thanks the old man again for his cooperation and says he'll do his best, and that he'll visit Cross whenever he needs his wisdom. Cross asks what wisdom he's talking about and tells the boy just to bring some drinks. As the Marcos walks away, Ash shouts that he's worried about his health and will send him medical supplies. Cross says he's a scoundrel. Cross takes a deep breath and says goodbye, walking away. He's probably heading back to his orchard. Ash wants to stop him. Even though he's old and weak, Cross protected the city his entire life. He would be great help in the battle, but he's already lost too much to that city. So Ash didn't stop him and just watched the old man shrink in the distance. He thought to himself that he should make himself available to talk with him more often and listen to more of his warnings the next time he visited. Ash didn't know there would be no next time. 2 days later, the new stage begins. The walls were finished just in time. The construction leader says there were parts they rush, but the wall's functionality should be fine. Ash thanks him. Everything is ready. They have enough supplies, and they've expanded their forces. Now they have over 300 Twilight soldiers on their side. Ash heard they used to be 1,000, but he has to be grateful for what they got. The magic cannon moves. Ash hugs it and says it's his old trusted friend. The kill zone has been ready for a long time. The preparations are perfect. The monsters can come now. A person lifts their masked face and takes a step. They are standing before the city. A knight approaches the wall on his course. He's there to report what the Rican base saw. The monsters are approaching. Ash sees thousands of rats coming on the horizon. Stage 2 will begin in 9 seconds. The young man shouts that the enemies are coming and to not let their guard down. Everyone agrees. They are perfectly prepared. Things have never been this good at the start during the entire time he's played that game. Ash is confident for the enemies to come to him. The masked person is there standing before the wall and stares at Ash. He is startled and wonders who that is. Lucas asks what's wrong, and Ash asks if he can see that person out there. But the smoke rises and he loses sight of the person. Lucas says he doesn't see anything. Ash shouts for Damien and asks if he sees anyone out there. Damien says he sees no one. Ash wonders if he's seeing things that would be a relief. But what if what he saw was real? What if there really was someone there? Ash wonders who the hell that person was. His heart starts pounding. The rat army has finally arrived. Ash needs to calm down. No matter what he saw, no matter how many they are, there's only one thing he can do. He needs to stop them. So he shouts for the artillery to prepare to fire. Ash orders them to fire, and the cannons begin shooting their shells at the enemies. The shells fly toward the rats and explode many of them. Ash is happy. Nearly 100 rats taken out with just a few shots. They're going to destroy all the rats. The monsters have nothing on their side but numbers. There's a massive number of rats, and they're coming like a swarm. In other words, they can wipe them all out using only ranged attacks. 30 minutes have passed since the battle began, and until then they had no problems at all. With 924 rat exterminations, suddenly some rats start climbing the wooden walls. Ash watches from afar, frightened. They're all heading toward the wooden wall. Then it ends up collapsing under the weight. The young man wonders who commanded the rats to use the weight of their own bodies to bring down the structure. The collapse of the death zone at that moment wasn't in his calculations. Ash yells for the artillery unit to change their aim and for the ballista unit to get ready. There is still a distance between the death zone and the wall, and besides that, it is covered with obstacles. Cannons and crossbows fire. There was one thing Ash had forgotten. A soldier shouts that the rats are too fast and hard to aim at. Ash gets angry because those monsters are too fast. The speed of four-legged animals is higher. He should have thought of that earlier. By that point, many more rats than he expected are approaching the wall. The magic cannon begins to move. Then it fires several bullets at once. Ash is startled. The rats make horrible noises before being hit by a huge explosion. That was epic. There is no defense like the automatic defense tower. But no matter how good its performance is, it can't attack the entire battlefield. Besides, the cannon used all its ammunition and will need to reload before firing again. Many rats are approaching the wall. They reach the front line much earlier than Ash predicted. The fragments of the giant sword are hitting some rats, but it's only a matter of time before they reach the wall. That means he won't be able to avoid close combat, but pushing them back with their bodies will cause a lot of damage. Explosions continue happening down below. Something catches Ash's attention. Several explosions occur in sequence. Ash notices they are amazing shots and asks who is doing that. It's an old man from the Twilight Army guiding a younger soldier. The contribution of star-covered men combined with the forces Ash already had is turning out better than he expected. Another man shouts for everyone to stay tight and not to lose focus so early in the battle. They still have a long way to go. A Twilight Knight yells for the soldier to fire without fear of missing. They are serving as mentors for Ash's soldiers. A man yells for Ash not to worry because the old men will handle it. Ash feels happy. He realizes he should trust those men. The defense battle continues running smoothly up to that point, thanks to the contribution of the Twilight Army. They are managing to attack the rats effectively. Meanwhile, among the members of his team, Lucas yells at the soldiers on the left that their fire net is too shallow. He questions what they're waiting for and orders them to shoot properly. Ash made Lucas the frontline commander. The young man gives the orders, and it's Lucas's job to ensure they are followed in more detail. As someone who knows nothing about the mercenary tactics of that world, even if Ash gives ridiculous and senseless orders, Lucas understands them and makes the necessary adjustments. He's a very competent leader. Damien holds his crossbow. He is shooting, slowly but accurately, always hitting the rats approaching the wall in their weak points. Damien's strength is the ability to shoot accurately even at long distances, but sometimes it feels useless in terms of absolute numbers. But his skill is significant enough since he increases the kill count. Ash looks at the young man with pride. Meanwhile, Lily is supervising the artifact defense tower on site. The girl shouts that gravity artifact number 1 will fall in 3 minutes and orders gravity artifact number 2 to be prepared. The way she acts seriously and speaks loudly to everyone makes Ash think Lily wants to show him that she's working hard. The boy ignores her. After all, he needs Lily to keep going to the front line if necessary. There's still the last member of the group, Jupiter. She's lying down with a drink in her hand and says everyone is working hard. Ash looks at her. He told her to stay on standby and relax a bit, but it seems all she heard was the word relax. Jupiter complains that her back hurts from using too much mana, and it's not like Ash can scold her since she's a very rare mage. Ash says she better work hard later. Jupiter agrees, and the young man thinks about how much he hates that little granny. Anyway, thanks to everyone except Jupiter, they are managing to attack the rats effectively. The magic cannon fires another shot, hitting several rats at once, showing incredible power. Ash hugs it, saying it's doing a good job. At that point, they should get through that stage without problems. The young man wonders if this time he'll manage to win without any losses. Then something catches his attention. It's the same masked man. Ash requests a map from the system, and something catches his attention. A hostile NPC has infiltrated the facilities in Stage 2. All kinds of things happen during a stage. The large number of variables make the game very diverse, and the infiltration of a hostile NPC is one of them. Whether it's an NPC in the dungeon below the lake or another kingdom that antagonizes the Empire, all sorts of characters appear to interfere with the stage's progress. But the point is that they're only in Stage 2. It's too early for that to happen. Ash can even ask the director why this is happening, since Eider isn't there. The young man yells for Damien and asks if he's seen that man. The masked man is there standing. Damien says yes, that wandering minstrel. Ash orders Damien to shoot him. The boy is confused and says he looks like a man, not a monster. He's an NPC from the Lake Kingdom, and judging by his clothes, clearly a wandering minstrel. Now Ash remembers him, and he shouts to Damien that they need to take the man down before he blows his flute. Damien trembles, crossbow in hand. Furious, Ash shouts that Damien must be his trigger, and he needs to shoot at that moment or else everyone will die. A sound echoes. Ash is startled and turns to the man. He's holding the flute. The rats turn to him and change their course. All the soldiers and knights are confused, questioning what is happening. The man blows his flute, and the rats go back toward the wall with even more fury. The swarm is approaching. Ash asks what their target is. Lucas shouts that it's the center of the wall, the part they had just finished repairing that same day. Ash orders the artillery and ballistas to aim at the enemy and use all their firepower. They begin to fire. The young man can't keep up with the defense lines. The change in the rats' movement was too sudden. They now run much faster and more violently. The cannons keep firing. Ash is alarmed. The rat simply rams straight into the wall. The others follow behind. They are banging their heads against the wall. The soldiers ask what the creatures are doing. One after another, the rats crash into the wall that had just been repaired that morning. Ash realizes those monsters are crazy bastards. The repair was completed just a few hours ago. Everyone did the best they could with the time they had, but the wall's condition remains unstable. Unfortunately, since they focused on quickly filling the gap, there are still cracks in the structure and the rats are hitting them. They are smashing their heads against the wall. They are bending the metal with their claws and destroying the bricks with their teeth. The rats are digging into the wall. A crack is growing. The enemies are using a method only rats could use. Ash is speechless. He doesn't know if he was wrong, but for a moment, it looked like the man was smiling. That man's an NPC from the Lake Kingdom, a wandering minstrel who can command monsters with just a flute. Players call him the Flute Man. They need to take him down. Ash shouts for Damien to shoot the man. The boy is trembling hard with the crossbow in hand. The man remains there, standing. Then he puts his hand on his hat. Ash shouts for Damien, and the man disappears. The two fall silent, and Damien apologizes to his highness, saying that even if he's an enemy, he can't shoot a person. Ash should have thought of that after all. Damien is a healer, but they're going to face many enemies who are human, so Damien will have no choice but to shoot eventually. If he doesn't, Damien's attack power will be cut in half. Ash puts his hand on the boy's shoulder and says they'll talk about it later. Now they have another problem to solve. He shouts for the artillery and archers to stay in the center. Everyone keeps firing at the rats. Ash shouts that there's work for Jupiter out there. The old woman, Happy, says she was waiting for him to say that. The young man yells for her to fry them. Then Jupiter uses her lightning power. Ash yells for Lily to prepare the flamethrower artifacts, the ones with more power. Lily agrees and activates the flamethrower artifacts. The mages begin to control the artifacts on top of the wall. The girl orders them to turn them on now. In addition to cannonballs, arrows, and lightning, flames are also launched toward the rats. Ash gets excited. The rats chose to crowd all in the same place. The monsters start dying. Ash concludes he's going to turn that whole field into a death zone. Laughing like a psychopath, he asks how the rats dare look at the fortress built by an empire. The system beeps and catches the young man's attention. He's shocked. The name of the boss has been revealed. It's the champion rat man. There are 3 of them, and they are level 3. If his name was revealed and they've reached the battlefield with a second swarm of rats right behind them, they are trying to break the fortress. Ash tells them to stop them. One of the bosses approaches and begins to run at high speed toward the wall. Ash shouts, asking why the soldiers are just standing there, and orders them to stop the monsters. The shots resume wildly, but they don't stop the rat man. He seems to be twice the size of the rat man they saw in the dungeon. That thing cannot collide with the wall. The magic cannon fires once more toward the boss closest to the wall. The rat man is hit squarely and falls, lifeless, to the ground. Ash watches from afar, frightened. He shouts that more are coming and for everyone to stay ready. They need to take down the champion rat men first. Ash orders them to fire with everything they've got and activate the mana amplifier for Jupiter. She's filled with electric power and tells the rats to get the hell out of there. Then throws lightning explosions on the enemies. Her attack was just as powerful as Ash had predicted. Countless rats are melting. Even so, the boss keeps advancing. Jupiter is shocked that it wasn't enough. The scattered damage wasn't enough to take down the champion rat men. Ash shouts for Lily and tells her to use the flamethrower. The girl says the artifact is still cooling down, but Ash tells her to use her own power. Lily is startled, then begins to focus her mana, and complains that she knew this was going to happen as she launches a flame attack on the monsters. The rats are caught by surprise. One of the bosses is charred, but the other is still alive and keeps advancing. Ash yells to stop him. Lucas grabs his sword and throws it at the creature. The rat man is hit in the shoulder and screams. Lucas says they need one more shot. Ash tells Damien to handle it. The boy uses his farsight ability and fires his crossbow. The arrow hits the enemy right in the eye. Ash says they did it, but before he can celebrate, the boss keeps running, furious. The young man doesn't understand how that monster is still moving. He advances at high speed and crashes into the wall with full force, breaking it. A lot of smoke rises. The rat man is inside the city. Something is wrong. Cross was the one who commanded that city and dedicated his life to defending it from monsters. He realized it right away. Something is different about this monster invasion. It's completely different from the ones Cross experienced when he was the Lord. Not only is their level completely different, but the monsters are now part of one thing, like many monsters fused together. Cross watches from afar and wonders if that means that Prince Ash has already fought 3 battles similar to this one. He understood why the young prince and lord desperately asked for his help for a playboy who used to fool around in the capital. He did unbelievably well, but the situation is very dangerous. Cross wonders if he should help. He remembers the day he lost his wife and decides not to help. He's already retired, he has no reason to fight anymore, so the Marquis leaves on his horse. He wants to die in his orchard. Suddenly, an explosion happens, scaring the old man. It was the impact of the rat man against the wall which broke it. Cross is speechless, but he doesn't fight anymore. The war keeps happening and haunting him. The old man thinks he needs to return to his orchard. He will protect his wife this time. Ash shouts to evacuate the city. A bell begins to ring. There is a second rat swarm approaching, and there are many of them. Besides the minimum number of artillery soldiers and archers, those who can fight hand-to-hand must go down to the base of the wall. Ash shouts that Lucas will be in charge, then orders those who stayed behind to keep shooting. They need to form a fire net in front of the broken wall. He orders Jupiter to use her power to take down as many rats as she can with all her mana. The old woman agrees. Ash asks Lily if there's any other artifact to activate, and she says only the speed one is left. The boy asks about the flamethrower, and Lily says it still needs 10 minutes to recharge. He tells Lily to use the speed artifact on the knights who will fight the monsters hand-to-hand and to use the flamethrower as soon as it's ready. Ash heads toward Damien, but is startled. He looks like he's about to cry. He's probably blaming himself for all of this. Ash flicks his forehead and says he's been doing great. Damien is speechless. Ash tells him not to blame himself for a small mistake and not to be so hard on himself. He's a shooter who hits his targets. He's a tricky character. The boy grabs Damien's shoulders and says he's grateful to have him there, so he needs to pull himself together. Patting the boy's back, Ash says Damien's duty will be to take care of the last line of defense. Every rat that gets past the front fighters and invades the city must be taken down by him. Damien agrees seriously and says he'll do his best. All Ash can do now is hope that everyone does their part. The swarm of rats reaches the wall. Ash shouts for them to prepare for combat. Down below, the knights are nervous. They formed a massive defensive line, and the rats begin entering by climbing over the fallen rat man lying in the wall breach. The first rat makes a screeching noise as it enters, but is quickly struck. Its head flies off thanks to a blow from Lucas with his new sword, which has a special power against rats. Lucas shouts to everyone that the enemies have arrived and tells them to stay calm and take them down one by one. The knights yell, raising their shields and preparing for battle. Ash watches from above. More and more rats pass through the wall. One monster begins gnawing on the wall. It looks like they want to widen the tunnel. The boy gets nervous. They should be rats, but they're more like moles. Lily shouts that the flamethrower artifact is ready and she's going to activate it. A scream erupts. Ash turns and asks what happened. There are rats up top who took down the alchemists. One of them crawls over to Lily, asking for help. Ash runs as fast as he can and punches one of the rats in the face. The slot machine spins and he wins again. The rat flies away with his super punch. He looks around and wonders how they got up there. From outside, the rats are climbing the wall with their claws. Lily has tears in her eyes and starts to feel rage. She begins to use her firepower and shouts for the rats to come to her. Because of the injuries caused to the alchemists, the artifact can't be activated. A knight loses his hand in the middle of battle. He screams in pain, but they can't retreat there. The frontline fighters will suffer injuries defending the city. The long-range interceptors need to take over the defense, but both sides are taking damage. Ash punches another rat. At that point, they're on the verge of suffering irreparable damage. Something catches the attention of one of the Twilight Knights. It's Marquis Cross. Ash can't believe it. A flash of light approaches, and someone raises a massive sword. It's Cross galloping at high speed toward the city. He shouts for the rats to turn to him. His sword reflects a lot of light, drawing attention. He's using a long-range taunt. The rats become agitated and nervous at those flashes of light. Ash wonders what Cross is doing. and shouts to the man that he'll die if he keeps that up. But the old man is serious, as if he knows exactly what he's doing. Charles Cross spent his entire life annihilating monsters. He was born in that place defending against monsters and continued even when he became Marcus and later Lord. He wiped out monsters day after day, killing them before they killed him. That world was clear and simple. Until she arrived in the city the woman Cross fell in love with. At the time, he asked what she was going to sell. The girl replied flowers and gave him two. She had submitted a request to open a shop. The Marquis was left speechless around her. Then he replied to the girl that this was a war zone against monsters. What they needed were swords, spears, and bombs. There was no reason to sell flowers. Excited, the girl said that was exactly why people needed flowers, because they were useless, and their futility and how quickly they die is what makes them beautiful. Cross couldn't understand her and felt uncertain about her at first. He thought she might be a spy. He went to her flower shop. The girl was happy with the Lord's presence there. He looked at some flowers and said he had never seen them before. He visited her every day to try and find out if she was a spy. Marquis Cross learned the color and scent of different flowers and memorized every one he saw. Even so, he couldn't understand why they were beautiful, and a year later, Cross asked her to marry him. His horse charges into the battlefield. Cross shouts for the rats to look at him. The animals make a lot of noise. Then all of them turn toward Cross and begin advancing in his direction. Ash wonders what the old man is doing. The boy shouts from above, asking what the man is doing and saying he's going to end up dead that way. The old man is serious, then lets out a furious roar. The rats reach him. One night, many years before, Cross was exhausted. There had just been an invasion in the city. At home, his wife held their daughter in her arms. She was crying, emotional. Instead of rushing back without even wiping all the blood off his body, he picked up his daughter. It was Evangeline. The girl asked if Cross didn't think she was as beautiful as her name. The man didn't respond. He didn't know how to. The baby grabbed his finger. He didn't understand why that tiny, fragile little thing that could barely keep warm on her own made him feel so much emotion. It was as if he could understand everything. He had just been slaying monsters, yet suddenly he understood nothing. Ash shouts for the soldiers to prepare for battle, but not to use artillery or ballista units, so the Marquis doesn't get hit. He orders the soldiers to use crossbows and arrows to hit the rats from the outside. Then he shouts for Lucas, telling him to gather all the soldiers who can fight and take them outside the wall to save Cross. Lucas is serious and says this is not a rescue mission. They should strike the rats from behind and end this in an instant. Lucas shouts that they'll annihilate those bastards and return with Marquis Cross safe and sound. The gates open. Raising his sword, Lucas shouts for them to advance and wipe out all the rats. All the knights charge forward. Ash hopes they succeed. Holding his sword tightly and shouting furiously, Cross slays as many rats as he can. No one could understand. The rats keep attacking him. Not even Marquis Cross could understand why he was doing that, why he chose the city once more, even after choosing to be by his wife's side, why he was fighting for that city again. The old man is struck. Not even Ash understands the reasons for Cross being there. Part of his armor flies off. Even after spending his whole life trying to understand, Cross never reached the bottom of it. But he knew one thing about the bottom of his heart. Charles Cross leans on his sword to try to stand and charges once more, now on foot, toward the monsters, the flowers, his daughter. He had to protect the weak and fragile from those monsters, and slaying monsters was what he did best. Cross shouts that his daughter lives behind that wall. That is the world where his daughter lives. None of those rats will cross the wall. The rats attack Cross, leaving him badly wounded. He knew that no matter how much he cultivated or how many monsters he killed, those days would never return. But since he knew nothing except how to fight, he swung his sword. In his mind, he just thought he wanted to take down at least one more rat, and so he wiped out several of them. Marquis Cross clenched his teeth to take one more with him in his afterlife. His sword drips with blood. Everything is eerily quiet. The monsters are not attacking him. Maybe he's already dead. Someone calls out to Cross. It's Lucas, who says they defended against all those monsters and the battle is over. Cross is shocked. In front of him stands a massive army. Lucas says Cross can finally rest. The old man can barely stay on his feet and lets his sword fall. Lucas calls for Ash and says it's too late. Ash is speechless. He walks slowly and something startles him. Damien is trying to use his healing power on Cross, who is lying on the ground. The boy notices Ash's presence there and lowers his head. Ash is sad. He pulls out a high-quality potion he got from the last reward chest. Maybe it'll work, but someone tells him not to use it. It's Cross himself, who says that won't heal his wounds. He'll just hurt a lot. The old man asks Ash to help him stand up. He can't see anything. Ash supports him with his arm, and Cross asks if the war is over. The boy says yes, and that it was all thanks to him. Cross asks if they got through the wall. Ash confirms, but says none of them survived and the citizens are safe. The old man says that's good. Then he looks at everyone in front of him and tells them not to wear such depressing faces. This is the battle against monsters. It's natural for them to die, as time simply came. And he asks them not to be sad. Someone dies all the time. It should be happy for that victory and for having survived. Cross's eyes grow heavy. That city was built on top of graves. which means many were annihilated in battle. But it also means that many people live there despite the cemetery just below. Cross tells Ash that if he spends his time sad or worried about everyone, that city will stop functioning. Funerals matter, but the living matter more. Ash agrees. In the end, hope is what keeps them going. So if someone has to die, it should be the one who's already lost all hope. The Marquis asks Ash to promise him one thing, and the boy says he'll do what he can. And the old man says that if his daughter returns, he must tell the girl that her father was very sorry, and for her to live however she wants in freedom. Ash says he will. Cross says that's all he asks, then apologizes to his wife. He couldn't protect anything. Not her, not the orchard, not their daughter. Ash holds the man's hand and says that's not true. He saved the world, and not just once. He dedicated his entire life to it. He saved every person inside the fortress. That world is in his debt, but the Marquis doesn't respond. Cross apologizes again and says he couldn't protect anything. He can't even hear Ash anymore. Then the boy remembers the fruit that the Marquis gave him. Ash wasn't sure why he'd been carrying a bag of such horrible fruits, but maybe it was for that moment. He places a fruit in Cross's mouth. The old man exhales. That grape tasted so sweet to him. That's when Cross stopped breathing and the sound of the bell rang from afar. It was the announcement that the monster invasion had come to an end and there was no longer a need to evacuate. Ash couldn't understand it. That man lost everything he loved trying to protect the city, and he despised it to the point of abandoning the family business. So why did he turn back at the last moment just to fight to his death? What was in that battle that swallowed the life of that man? Ash says it's hard, being the lord of that city. It is indeed a heavy burden. The bell tolls and all the soldiers are standing before the wall, watching Ash and the Marquis. The system informs that Stage 2 has been cleared and Ash received a reward. Lucas is promoted and Cross has passed away. Night falls over the city. Ash enters the house. Eider is relieved and asks if the boy is hurt. He was worried. Ash is covered in blood and starts to say something, but Eider interrupts him and says the boy managed to clear another stage, and that he's impressed, but Ash grabs him by the collar and slams Eider against the wall. Ash demands that Eider tell him, but the servant doesn't know what he's talking about. The boy shouts at Eider to stop pretending to be innocent and acting like a clueless director. This whole situation is suspicious. Ash questions why the levels are so hard. The tutorials are already very difficult, so he ignored that. And when the wandering armors appeared in Stage 1, he accepted that too. But a hostile NPC showed up and commanded the monsters in Stage 2. That doesn't even happen in Hell difficulty in that game. Furious, Ash yells at Eider to tell him what he's planning. Why is this game so hard, and what's going to happen in the next stage? Ash asks why Eider said he was going to help him. Was it just to hide those things from him? Eider stays silent for a moment, then says Ash probably won't believe him, but he's doing his best to help him. Ash shouts at Eider not to lie to him and asks how that could possibly be helping if he doesn't even tell him anything. The servant points to a necklace. The necklace Ash received for clearing Stage 0. When he finishes Stage 3, its power will activate, and when that happens, he'll have all the answers. All he needs to do is clear one more stage, and then he'll see why all of that is happening. Eider says he'll be praying that Ash can handle it. Even after learning everything about that crazy world, Eider hopes Ash continues fighting just like he is now, because he won't be able to run away after that. Ash asks what he won't be able to escape from. Eider stays silent. He won't be able to escape that entire world. Someone is walking through the forest. It's a girl. It's been 3 days since they cleared Stage 2. The flags placed throughout the city wave in the wind, and the atmosphere is strangely quiet. They are restoring the wall, and Ash pushed Eider as much as he could. Even so, the Crossroads is preparing for the next battle. Lucas is in a carriage on the way back home after days of work. There are 12 days and 9 hours left until Stage 3 begins. Including the last 3 days, they have a total of 15 days between stages, which isn't bad, and there were no problems with the wall repairs. Something catches the young man's attention. Arriving with the carriage at his house, he sees a silhouette. It's a girl who's looking at him. Ash starts to say there's someone there, but before he finishes, she attacks the carriage. As soon as she hits the vehicle, its window shatters. The boy is very startled by the sudden attack. The girl is also surprised. She wanted to hit the vehicle's wheels. Lucas asks if Ash is okay. The boy says yes. Furious, Lucas turns to the girl and asks who the hell she is and if she knows who Ash is. Then he draws his sword and says he'll arrest her and punish her accordingly. Ash tells him to calm down. She looks like just a kid. But Lucas tells him not to underestimate her just because she's young. She looks trained to fight. The outfit she's wearing is the uniform of the Imperial Academy. Her badge confirms it. Lucas asks what a student is doing there and tells her to reveal herself. Angrily, the girl says that's exactly what she's trying to tell those geezers. Ash and Lucas shout that they're not geezers. The girl points to the Lord's house and says that's her house, but when she returns, she was informed that strange soldiers are occupying it. She didn't know if they were bandits who had been chasing them for generations or if enemy forces had infiltrated. She was still thinking about what to do. But then the carriage appeared, so she stopped it. Ash yells that she could have just told them to stop instead of destroying the carriage. Calmly, she says she learned at the academy that when you suspect someone, you must show them your power. But she didn't mean to destroy the carriage, so she apologizes for that, pointing at them with her sword. She asks what the geezers are and what they're doing occupying her house. Seriously, the girl says they could suffer greatly depending on the answer, so they better think carefully. Lucas plants his sword in the ground and asks what the girl is talking about. That is the house of the Lord of the Crossroads, so it belongs to Ash. The girl asks what they're talking about and says her father is the Lord. The two realize what's going on. Ash takes a deep breath. He remembers the Marquis talking about his daughter. The boy says she must be Evangeline Cross, and the girl asks if he knows her. Then he says he heard about her from her father. It was obvious she was Cross's daughter the moment he saw her. They had the same green eyes. Ash thinks for a moment and remembers that the Evangeline he saw in the game was an adult woman. Even if this girl isn't that young, she's still quite new. The boy says she's shorter than he expected. He wonders why she looks so different. The other characters look similar to the game's representations. Lucas tells Ash he shouldn't comment on someone's appearance in front of them. It can be rude. Ash apologizes and says he didn't mean to insult Evangeline by calling her short. Angrily, the girl asks how he dares to mock her insecurity and says he must have more than one life. Nervously, Ash says he only has one, and Evangeline says then he should be more careful. The girl grabs what she has on her back. It's a bird-shaped shield. Evangeline says she's changed her mind. She was just taking a look to understand the situation. But now she's going to attack for real. The girl begins charging at them quickly. She looks a lot like her father. She looks exactly like him. Lucas defends himself from the attack and asks Evangeline to lower her sword. She's fighting against the third Imperial Prince Ash. Evangeline yells that first he took over her home and now he's pretending to be part of the royal family. She pushes Lucas's sword away, then asks why a nobody playboy would go to that remote village. Evangeline starts advancing again. Lucas gets ready. He makes a single move and throws the girl far away, while she says he's not bad for an old man. Lucas confirms and says he was also a student at her academy. The man introduces himself as Lucas McGregor and says he graduated with honors from class 369, and that prince behind him, Ash, was also a student. The young man gets nervous because he didn't know he had studied there. Lucas continues and says Ash graduated in class 369 and is known as a legend. Ash gets emotional. He approaches Lucas very excited and asks what he did to be known as a legend. Lucas says Ash clearly has royal blood because he confidently relaxed while skipping class, and that's how he ended up last in the class. Ash thinks that if he's going to relax, it's better to do it outside the classroom than during class. Evangeline asks if they're now going to pretend to be alumni from her school and if they think she can't recognize her own seniors. Both of them are at a loss for words. The girl grips her sword more tightly and says that she, Evangeline Cross, honorary student of class 375, is honored to meet them. Meanwhile, the girl charges at them. She keeps trying to attack Lucas and he continues to defend himself from her blows. Ash watches from afar. Both are spectacular fighters, perhaps because they're on the same level. They are the two most brilliant combatants in that world. It's incredible, but someone might get hurt. Ash shouts that that's enough and tells them both to stop. Then he says he thinks there's a misunderstanding and they should talk, but both continue fighting with their swords. The young man asks if they can't hear him, but it seems not. Those two knights are completely immersed in their battles. In that case, someone will have to spoil the fun. No matter how bad his attack is, all he needs to do is stop them. He just needs to hit them gently. Behind Evangeline, Ash uses the prince's punch. The slot machine spins. He manages to line up 3 identical numbers. Ash wonders why that had to happen right at that moment. Evangeline is startled. A super powerful punch hits her. Ash is shocked by the blow he just delivered. He even managed to break the residence's wall with his punch. Lucas says that was an impressive hit and asks how he did it, but Ash says there's something more important. Evangeline is knocked out, lying on the ground. Lucas asks how Ash could be so cruel to a small child. The young man tries to explain that it wasn't his intention. The smoke begins to settle. Ash asks Lucas if she's alive. In Evangeline's childhood, monsters could invade the city at any moment. Her mother always stayed with her in the room. She said she was there to comfort her in case she got scared of the monsters. But Evangeline knew the truth. It was her mother who feared the monsters. The child asked her what she was afraid of and said her father would protect them from the monsters. The mother smiled and said the girl was right. That was just before Evangeline found out that it wasn't the monsters her mother feared. She was afraid of losing her husband and afraid of her daughter's fate of needing to fight on the front lines one day. Evangeline wakes up startled. She's in the house. Lying in bed, she thinks that scent is familiar. Evangeline is in her room. Someone knocks on the door and opens it. The girl is startled and covers herself completely to hide. Ash approaches the bed. He pulls up a chair and sits next to Evangeline. The girl says it's been 3 years already and asks how he's doing. Ash doesn't understand. Evangeline asks why she always bothers him with questions, then asks if he had fun hunting monsters that time. She's sad and thinks that's not what she wanted to say. She wanted to have a more proper conversation. Ash apologizes to Evangeline and says he's not her father. The girl is startled and wonders who that person is. She looks for a weapon, but doesn't find it. Then she's surprised because her hand is bandaged. Ash comments that she still doesn't seem to have regained her senses and asks if he hit her too hard the day before. The girl remembers the fight they had, and she yells that Ash is the old man from the previous day. The young man says he's not an old man. Evangeline continues and says he was the man who looked weak and gave her a savage punch. Ash complains that he doesn't look weak and he's not old. He just wants to introduce himself. The young man introduces himself as Ash, the third Imperial Prince who became the Lord of the Crossroads. The girl asks if he's going to keep lying about that, and says that if he's a prince, then she's a princess of the county. She mocks him, but Ash raises something for her. Evangeline is startled. It's an Imperial identity tag, so he must be telling the truth. Ash says that's what he was trying to tell her. With a huge smile on her face, Evangeline says she's a big fan and asks for an autograph. The young man gives her an autograph and says he wants to clear things up, and asks if she became his fan because he's a nobody in the Empire. The girl happily confirms and says he's a real disaster. Ash asks why. Then the girl says she also wanted to rebel against her father. She wanted to get into trouble, make noise, and tarnish the family's honor. That's why she ran away from home, then joined the Imperial Academy because her father didn't want that. But there they train every day, so instead of slacking off, she ended up becoming a model student. Ash knows she wasn't just a model student. Evangeline graduated at the top of her class in 3 years, even though the program lasts 6 years. That made her a genius for breaking a historical record. The girl says there was nothing she could do. All she managed was to cut contact with her father for 3 years. Ash says that's a cute way to rebel. She says the boldness of worrying her father, who is none other than the emperor of all, and the pure creativity of getting into different accidents each time. Not to mention how rich he is and can make mountains of gold and lay out carpets made of jewels. As a result, her father collapsed from stress. Evangeline says excitedly that Ash is amazing and an inspiration to her. The young man isn't sure if that's a good thing. He thinks about how she idolizes him for his terrible lifestyle. That's the price he pays. Smiling, Evangeline asks Ash where her father is, and says she wants to use all the good daughter tactics she learned from Ash, then asks if he realized she would return and went into hiding. The young man gets nervous and says he thinks Evangeline hasn't been informed. The girl asks what he's talking about. It seems she came straight home after graduating. Ash clenches his fist. Growing tense, the girl asks what happened and if something's wrong. The young man apologizes for giving her that news in that way, but her father died. Ash says it happened a few days ago. He sacrificed his life to save the city. His death was heroic, and Ash made sure to report all his contributions to the Imperial Palace. Since he made a great contribution throughout his career, he will receive a medal for his bravery. Evangeline is speechless. Ash says the funeral will be in 3 days and will be held with the utmost respect. The girl laughs and says she thought she could be a bad daughter at least once, but he ran away. He always said he would die fighting monsters, and he really did that, without even letting her hold a grudge against him. Ash says he's very sorry and that now he is the lord of that place and holds the responsibility of the front lines. So her father's death is his responsibility, so she can resent him instead. Evangeline asks if the young man is sure he's Prince Ash. He gets confused and she says that the prince she always heard about is a total idiot, arrogant, egocentric, and treats everyone like garbage. Ash asks her not to call him an idiot to his face. The girl thanks Ash for his thoughtfulness. The young man says there's a servant on the other side of the door and she can call them if she needs anything. He opens the door. Before he leaves, Evangeline calls out to him and apologizes for the day before for the carriage and the fight. Ash smiles and says it's no problem, then closes the door and tells her to get some rest. First, it's important to know Evangeline's age. She's only 16. Ash says she's really just a child and 2 years younger than Damien. Ider says that anyway, Evangeline appears in the game later at the end of the 2nd year or the beginning of the 3rd. But thanks to the causes and effects of that game, she showed up earlier than expected. Ash understands that's why she looks very different compared to her version in the game. In other words, Evangeline was supposed to take 2 more years to appear. That's why she would look like an adult woman, because children grow quickly at that stage. The system announces that Ash has acquired a new character. Evangeline is level 35, all of her skills are excellent, including her agility. She is the best weapon in that game. Just for stats alone, impress him. On top of that, she has the ability to gain 100% resistance against any attack. Something catches Ash's attention in Evangeline's traits. There's Troublemaker, something that cannot be cancelled. As long as she is young and inexperienced, she will make mistakes. They could be small or big. That trait will disappear as she gains experience. Ash becomes tense. He's happy that she appeared earlier, but he didn't expect her to come with a disadvantage like that. But anyway, she is young, just a 16-year-old child. She should be playing with her friends and not fighting on a battlefield. Ash remembers when the system sent him the message. Ider calls out to Ash and asks if he's going to recruit Evangeline to his team. The young man hesitates. Then Ider gets confused and says Evangeline could make a great contribution. Ash says he'd be lying if he said he's not tempted. He would have two SSR-level characters, Lucas and Evangeline, in Stage 3. That is tempting for sure, but Cross said he wanted his daughter to escape the cursed land and live a happy and peaceful life. Ash made a promise. The old man said he wanted his daughter to live freely and do whatever she wanted. That was his final wish. He asked Ash to ensure that his daughter would not get involved in the family's affairs. Ash must keep his promise. He will let Evangeline do whatever she wants. Eider says his face suggests otherwise, but Ash changes the subject. The servant asks if he shouldn't just be taking the girl by force. If they lose her, he will regret it greatly. Ash agrees, but he doesn't want to neglect his duty as a human just to clear a stage. Then Eider asks if Ash didn't clear the Hell Ironman stage precisely because he didn't care about that. The young man agrees and says that if he does everything the same way this time, it would mean he failed to grow or evolve as a person. He wants to become a better person. Eider gets serious and says that kind of limitation will destroy him someday. But Ash says he doesn't care. He's not doing this to look like a noble man, but he also doesn't want to become a monster. Even if their lives are disposable, he wants to be a human being, and that's all. Ash says Eider should take good care of Evangeline. She's a teenager and must have a lot on her mind. Eider seems worried and asked about the girl's sword and shield. When he assessed the SSR level sword and shield, he noticed they were in terrible condition and cannot be salvaged. Now they need to compensate the girl. Ash is shocked that her weapons were SR level. That means they must be super rare and extremely expensive. Eider says they can buy her new equipment since they have some high-level mana stones from the last battle. Ash is speechless, and Eider asks what's wrong. Then Ash says he spent the last mana stones buying a mana weapon. Eider asks why he bought something useless. The young man trembles and says he can give her his lucky punch lux. Eider disagrees. Ash thinks for a moment and yells for Eider to gather the team. They need to go after more mana stones. It was about time to explore the dungeon anyway. He'll craft her equipment from scratch. A few hours later, in the backyard garden of the Lord's residence, the team gathers. Ash says it feels like it's been a long time and asks how it was taking a few days off. The group looks worn out. Lily is crying and asks why he summoned her again. She thought Ash had some new recruits and should call them instead of her. The young man says he only recruited a few men from the mercenary guild. The problem is that they are N-level combatants. They might become good fighters one day, but they're not good enough yet to join his team. Ash only intends to replace Lily when he has another character at the same level as her. Someone asks where Ash is going. The young man looks confused. It's Evangeline approaching. Lily asks who she is. Then Ash says they probably haven't met yet and asks them to say hello to the only daughter of Marcus Cross, Evangeline Cross. Everyone bows to her. Jupiter offers his condolences. Evangeline thanks him for his kind words and says she's fine. Then she asks again where they are going. Ash replies that they're heading to a dungeon, and the girl says there isn't one near the city. Then she's shocked and asks if he's talking about the dungeon beneath the lake. Ash asks how she knows about it. The girl says that's just a legend. Foolish adventurers go there from time to time looking for treasure, but no one ever comes back. Ash says that's not true and that they've already returned from there. The girl tells him to explain that. If he's saying there's a dungeon that not even the members of the Cross family knew about, but he's already been there. Ash says maybe her whole family knew about it, except for her. She didn't receive the education she should have as the family's heir. So even if the existence of the secret dungeon beneath the lake was shared, she wouldn't have known. In the end, Ash says he doesn't care if she believes him or not. They've decided to go. He starts walking away and Evangeline yells that she's coming too. She says she graduated with honors from the Royal Academy, so she'll be useful to them on the battlefield. Ash says he knows that and tries to argue. But Evangeline says that if there's something beneath the lake, she wants to see it with her own eyes. She says she's the successor of the Cross family and her parents died because of the monsters that live beneath the lake, so she has the right to go. Ash gets nervous. That's exactly why he tried to keep her out of it, because that's what her father wanted. The young man asks how Evangeline feels and she says she feels great. He asked about her emotional state and the girl looks confused. Ash asks if she's feeling any better. The girl says she feels worse if she just sits around. She needs to do something. Then she yells, asking if Ash is going to take her. The young man agrees he has no more reason to leave her out. Lily feels a hint of hope about being dismissed, and Ash says she can stay at the crossroads. Crying with joy, Lily celebrates. That brings new synergy to the team. They can't lose morale and their physical defense increases by 20%. Eider says that since it was urgent, he brought her childhood sword and shield. Ash notices that this team is quite strong. Ash says they should go and asks if everyone is ready. The team agrees. Then the young man starts forming the teleportation portal and tells them to move forward. Evangeline is impressed. Ash says he's going to show her the attraction located in his hometown. The teleportation loads and the system shows a tip saying that NPCs can be allies or enemies depending on your choices. The group walks into the dungeon. They're in District 1, the drained sewer. Lucas calls out to Ash and asks if they haven't already explored that district. Ash says that since they have a new member in the team, it's better to test efficiency in an easy place. Then Lucas asks if he's saying the monsters are back there, and Ash confirms. The dungeon monsters regenerate after wall defense battles. Thanks to that, they can repeat level grinding and item acquisition, and since the risks in these stages are lower, it's a good way to boost specific points. The main team's goal is conquest. They explore the dungeon, going deeper to fight bosses and participate in events. Meanwhile, the idea of sub-teams is cultivation. They return to higher-level districts already explored and get items from monsters. Ash wants them to be the main team, but since Evangeline needs to adapt to the dungeon, they went back to District 1. Evangeline feels sick. She starts vomiting and Jupiter helps her, asking if she's okay. Ash says it might be teleportation sickness. Lucas says it's the first time he's seen that. The girl looks at them and asks what the old men are talking about, then says she's fine. Lucas says of course she's young, but she seems to be having a hard time. Ash thought they would get along since they're on the same field. He wonders if they'll end up competing for the highest position. A sound echoes through the dungeon. Evangeline says she can hardly believe that place exists and asks how Ash found it since, even as a cross, she had no idea it existed. Ash already expected her to ask, so he prepared 2 explanations. He says he can't tell her everything, but there's no way the Emperor would have sent him there without a reason. Lucas and Evangeline are impressed, although this has nothing to do with the Emperor. In the Empire, using the Emperor's name is the best explanation for anything, no matter how it's used. Ash has never met the Emperor, but he's grateful to Ash's father for allowing him to lie. The young man tells them to light their torches so they can move forward. Evangeline screams in fear and asks why it's so dark in there. Ash says she needs to get used to it because that dungeon is completely dark. If she's afraid of the dark, she should leave. Evangeline gets angry. The system announces their progress in District 1. There are 4 normal rooms. They move forward and enter a room. Ash wonders what kind of monster it will be this time. Stones move. Evangeline is startled. A huge monster made of rocks approaches. It makes a loud noise when it sees the team. The enemy is a stone golem. It's level 6, and there are 4 of them in that room. Ash is shocked. It seems they were caught by surprise. He wonders if there's an army of those giants. The girl gets into position to fight. The young man observes that she seems nervous, probably because she's never had any real-life battle experience. Ash claps his hands and says they're about to see what those golems are made of. Evangeline gets excited and says she'll go first. The golem prepares to punch her. The girl defends with her shield. She wonders what that monster is, then backs away, and questions if it's normal for a monster to have that much power. The damage recovery skill is used. The girl charges forward again, shouting that it doesn't matter if it's an ox or a golem, she's going to hit it. She strikes the monster with her sword and a second skill activates, damage playback. Ash is impressed by the skill combo of the most powerful attacker. As soon as she finishes the first one, she yells that she'll take down the other 3. She used her first skill to recover and the second to deal more damage. That's the limit of what she can store. She's definitely an overpowered character. Evangeline stands in front of the monster, but the troublemaker trait activates. Ash is startled. The girl tripped and fell to the ground. Ash yells for them to hurry and save her. Everyone starts attacking. The dungeon conquest goes well. One last stone golem falls to the ground. Evangeline asks if there are more monsters, but that was the last one. She seems to be working hard to make up for the earlier fall. The system reports that they cleared District 1. Ash thinks about how it didn't even take an hour to clear that place. District 1 is very easy, doesn't pose any challenges. The young man says now they should take a break before entering District 2. Something startles Evangeline as she asks where they are. That's District 2, the hidden alley. Ash says that's the place they'll explore today. They need to gather several mana stones, and that's their chance to explore that hell that lies beneath the lake. The team decided to take a break before continuing with the exploration. Even though District 1 was easy, they must be tired. Ash watches Lucas compete with Evangeline even over eating a piece of bread. The torches continue to light the way. The young man asks if Damien is feeling okay, and he says yes. He doesn't strain himself too much. Then Ash hands him a weapon. Damien is confused. It's a hunting weapon, a mana weapon category. When attacking the rear of enemy forces, its penetration and damage increase by 10%. The young man says he got a level SR mana weapon in the last chest. It's a smaller version of a mana cannon that can be aimed at one person. It deals high damage, but it's hard to aim due to being unstable and having low capacity. That's why it's classified as a niche weapon. But if Damien uses it, then all those drawbacks will stop being a problem. Ash tells the boy to start by using it as a backup. Damien picks up the weapon and says it's much heavier than a crossbow. He'll need to work on his stamina because he's going to carry up to 6 of those from now on. They'll overcome the capacity issue by increasing the volume of weapons. The blacksmith is probably working on that just as he asked. In the game, a character can only use 1 weapon at a time, but this is real life, so it's not cheating to carry several weapons at once. Damien thanks Ash, but the MC is actually happy that he's a bugged character. Ash grabs his lantern and asks if the group has rested enough, then tells them to move on. District 2, Hidden Alley, has 4 rooms and a boss. They stand at the entrance of that district. Smiling, Ash tells them to enter District 2 of that dungeon. Lucas holds a torch. They are in the dark alley of the Lake Kingdom. The team is advancing. Ash hadn't noticed that when he played the game. But walking through those streets in person gives him chills. That's the monster's hideout. He thinks about a giant golem coming out of the alley, and it's horrifying. Suddenly, a huge monster actually emerges from the alley. Ash and Evangeline scream in terror. The creature looks like a giant robot, with gears and releasing smoke. It lets out a roar. The system informs that it is a level 15 steam golem, and there are 2 of them there. Ash wonders if they are already in the second room of the dungeon. It's hard to tell because all the alleys are very dark. The golem starts approaching. Lucas yells that he will stop it. He uses his sword against the creature. Ash shouts for him to be careful because there's another golem. The other one suddenly appears right behind Lucas. Evangeline rushes at it and uses her shield to block an attack from the golem. The girl notices that it is much stronger than the ones she faced before. Ash becomes tense watching the 2 fighting. While they hold the situation, he needs to think of a tactic. That's his job. He calls out to Jupiter and Damien and says they will attack the golem being held by Lucas first. Even though both are strong knights, Lucas is a deal tanker while Evangeline is a pure tanker. In terms of defense, Evangeline has more potential than Lucas. Ash tells the girl to take over the defense and hold the enemy. She agrees. When giant monsters like golems appear, they come in smaller numbers, but are stronger. Lucas keeps attacking the creature with his sword. Those golems are elite, so it's very difficult to engage in direct combat. That's why they always play as a team. Ash yells for Lucas to bring the monster down. He charges and makes a quick cut at the monster's legs. The golem's leg breaks and it falls to its knees. Ash shouts for Jupiter to destroy its protection. They need to expose its mana to win. Calmly, Jupiter does so. The shock she delivers to the golem starts to crack its armor, but it doesn't break completely. Jupiter observes and wonders if she failed. Ash yells that it's enough and Damien gets ready to shoot. He doesn't need a big opening. A small crack is enough. He tells Ash to pull the trigger, and he obeys. The bullet shoots out forcefully, straight at the golem. Ash holds the boy so he doesn't fall to the ground. He asks if Damien is okay, and the boy replies yes, but wants to know about the golem. Smiling, Ash tells him to look for himself. The creature has a huge hole in its chest, which is a relief. Lucas breathes in relief and says that was tough. Ash says those elite monsters are much stronger than typical ones. They need to stay alert because the difficulty level will keep rising. It seems they will fight a small number of monsters in District 2, so it's best to act as if every encounter is a boss fight. Evangeline asks why everyone's acting like that. She hasn't finished there yet. Ash apologizes. He had forgotten about her, but the girl is very quiet. Evangeline complains and says her shield is about to get crushed. Then Ash says they're already on their way and tells the group to help her. Their strategy after that was simple. Whenever the alley was wider, a wind golem would appear. It was hard at first, but then it got easier. On the way, they even encountered a mimic disguised as a chest. Ash wonders if they would believe him if he said he fell into the trap on purpose, but he concludes that as long as the group is having fun, it's all good. They keep walking through the dungeon. Lucas places his hand on something that looks like a puddle of black water. He says it feels like the darkness is pulling his hand. It feels wet and sticky. Lucas complains while clinging to a ledge. Then he says he doesn't think they can stray from the path. They need to keep following that street. Damien says he thinks they can't enter the building. Before them is a place with a blocked door. Jupiter observes that it seems to have been sealed with magic, so it can't be opened with strength alone. Damien asks if they sealed it to protect from what was outside, but he wants to know what was outside that was so scary. Ash disagrees. Then he says the door was sealed from the outside. It means they stopped whatever was inside that house and prevented it from coming out. Damien asks what Ash thinks is inside. Seriously, he says there's no way to know, and that's not the most important thing at the moment. So he tells them to move forward through the alley. The system shows their progress. They've already cleared 3 of the 4 normal rooms and only the boss room remains. Ash stops and asks if that would be the next room. It's a huge place, like a square. Ash tells them to stay together because they don't know when another golem will appear. Evangeline says there is a fountain in the middle and it is completely dry, but she sees a statue. On top of the fountain is the statue of a bearded man with a sword. Judging by the crown, he should be the king of the Lake Kingdom. Ash wonders why the statues on the right and left were destroyed. Damien calls for him and points to something. It's a point of light in the darkness. It looks like a blue flame. Ash looks tense, wondering if there is another light there besides the ones they are holding. Then it must be a person. Ash tells them to approach slowly. The team starts walking. The only thing scarier than monsters in a city full of monsters is a person. Ash wonders if it's an enemy or allied NPC. If they're not careful, the game will end, so they can't let their guard down. There's a lot of blue fire scattered and remains of golems. Ash is surprised to notice that those are fragments of destroyed golems. He wonders if that person defeated all those monsters alone. Someone says Ash did all that, and says it looks like he's exploring that place with the best skills. Ash is surprised. It's the Nameless One standing before them. Ash asks what the Nameless One is doing there. Even though they've seen each other before, it's good to keep guard up. After all, he's never seen that NPC before in any of the 742 matches, so there's no way to know if she is an ally or not. Nameless says she was just resting a bit there since living in the Lake Kingdom is boring. But anyway, since they all went that way, she must recognize their abilities and take them. The group prepares to fight. Nameless takes a red cloth and spreads it on the ground. On it are several valuable items. Then Nameless asks if they would like to buy something on the road. She sells high-quality products. Ash is shocked. He notices she's a merchant NPC. Nameless says she doesn't know what an NPC is, but she's a vendor. She says she's running a buy one get two campaign, and for a first purchase, she'll give 30% off. Nameless points to an armor and asks what they're waiting for and if they're going to let that opportunity pass. Looking at them, she says it's not every day she sells at those prices. Ash is speechless for a moment. Then he crouches and asks what she's selling. They are items she collected while wandering the Lake Kingdom, rare items that can't be found in the human world. Everyone in the group is impressed. Usually merchant NPC items are good, but those exceed all expectations. Nameless is very useful after all. Ash asks what she accepts as payment. Nameless says surface world money is useless down there. She accepts mana stones, exactly as he thought. Mana stones are a type of currency that can be exchanged for other things like imperial money or used in dungeon deals. But there's a problem. All the stones they collected have already been converted to money, none remain. He didn't expect to meet a merchant NPC so soon. It seems all those rare items in front of him are out of reach. Maybe he can offer items he got there. Ash hands over the stones they got inside the dungeon and asks what they can buy with them. Nameless examines and says, to be honest, they aren't very useful. But since this is their first deal and Ash seems very serious, she will let him take one of her items as a way of rooting for him. Ash wonders if she's an angel or something. He says she better not go back on that and that she said he can take any of the items. Nameless says she never goes back on her promises. Ash watches and thinks about which item he should choose so that everyone in the world recognizes his incredible decision-making skill. Jupiter says she doesn't ask for much, but if she eats that 100-year-old root, she should gain 10 more years. She's picking healing items instead of equipment. Seriously, Ash tells her to buy with her own money. Lucas grabs 2 boots and asks what Ash thinks about them. The boots increase speed. Ash asks if he wants to increase his agility. Then Lucas says no, but with those boots, Ash can run away faster in case of emergency. His eyes start to water. Lucas is the only one who truly cares about him. Even so, he is not a combat member, so he should leave that for next time. Damien notices a potion generator. Ash thinks about how interesting that item is. The healer says that if they kept that over time, they could help much more with wounded soldiers, and Ash thinks that's a good idea. Even though the refill is small, it can keep generating potions, which can help a lot with the wounded. But they can get potions on the surface. They shouldn't use the only chance they have for this. He asks Evangeline if she's not going to take anything. The girl says she's only there as a temporary group member and isn't very interested in equipment. When she graduated, she received a very high-quality sword and shield. Ash told her they are being repaired by the blacksmith, and that's enough for her. Ash and Lucas are speechless. They are there to pay for her equipment, but ended up blinded by their personal desires. He approaches the Nameless one and asks if by chance she has a sword or shield. She says she has the set. Then she takes out the demon's sword and the giant shield, both SSR and level 35. Moreover, the sword increases damage by 30% and the shield reduces damage by 30%. Ash is impressed. That is perfect. That is the demon and giant set. Using it complete increases skills by 50%, but it's a set. Only with one of them there is no such bonus. The young man thinks about what he should do. He can only choose one. Calmly, Nameless says she still has the buy one get two event, so he can take the set. Ash asks if she's serious. Nameless says yes and tells him to take the set. It wasn't useful to her anyway. In exchange, he must promise to keep exploring that place and buy something from her if they meet again. To Ash, she is the personification of light. He feels very awkward and thanks her. It feels like when an experienced gamer gives some good items to newbies. Ash promises to work hard. Then he calls Evangeline and tells her to take that set. The girl is confused. He is finally ready to confess everything that happened. That her equipment got destroyed with no chance of recovery because of him. Evangeline says she was the one who started the fight with Ash. All he did was hold her back. And that's how her equipment broke, so she believes it's her fault. Ash tells her to consider it a gift then. She is confused. Ash shouts for her to just accept it and hands the sword and shield to the girl, saying when an adult offers a gift, she should accept and thank them. The young man says that as a prince and former student of her academy, he wanted to give her a graduation gift. She can't refuse a prince's gift. That's also for Marcus Cross, who sacrificed himself for the city. He should be singing praises for his contribution, so if he doesn't return his daughter's equipment, he will feel guilty. Evangeline thanks Ash. Jupiter gets furious and asks if he's not going to give her any gift. Ash replies he'll give her a salary and already plans to give her a magical item later. Lucas looks sad and asks about his gift. Ash says he already has a set of weapons and already has an equipment plan for him. Damien smiles and says that's fine. Ash agrees he should be since he just gave him a mana weapon that was super expensive. Jupiter shows a mana stone to the merchant and grabs the magic root. She starts laughing evilly, saying she's going to eat it. Ash wonders where she got that mana stone. Ash asks if he can ask the Nameless one a question, and she says yes. Then he asks if she knows the man who plays the flute. Nameless seems not to know who he's talking about. Ash explains he is a wandering minstrel who wears a black hat. controls monsters by playing a flute, and it seems he comes from there. Nameless recognizes who he is. Then she says there are some eccentrics who wander the bottom of the lake, but that one is a famous person she knows. The young man observes that he didn't have much presence in the game and wonders if he's famous around there. Nameless says that if he keeps advancing like that, there's a huge safe zone between districts 3 and 4. That's where the same people go in that dungeon. People there refer to the place as a camping base. Ash knows that it's a safe zone that opens once you clear District 3. That place was organized by NPCs and is where various equipment and merchants are gathered. Nameless says the man Ash is looking for will also be there, and if he's not, he can get information about him, but first he'll face some obstacles. Still, Nameless is confident those obstacles won't be a problem for Ash. She says she hopes to see him again and alive, then leaves. Damien is confused that a merchant appeared in a place like that and comments that she's an interesting person. Lucas says that woman can't be trusted. Ash asks why, and he replies that she is very strong. Just look at how that woman finished those monsters alone. She's not just any fighter. Ash knows that if Lucas equips himself, levels up to the max, and buys all his attributes, he could do the same, but he understands Lucas's concern. Still, Nameless is categorized as an allied NPC. No one who gives away an SSR set for free can be a bad person. Ash claps and tells them to move forward. He tells them to go get the boss. The next stop is the boss room. Progress appears. They've already cleared the 4 rooms of District 2. Only the boss room is left. They need to take him down and get his treasures. The group is in front of a building. It looks like something passed through the seal. Ash says he doesn't know what's inside, but it seems this seal was useless, so he tells them to enter. Damien asks if they really need to do that, and Evangeline says they can turn back. Ash tells the kids to shut up and says they can't leave without checking the boss's house. The group enters. That room looks like a giant store. There are traces of swamp moss on the floor and walls. It looks like that place was submerged in water for a long time. Lucas asks if Ash thinks there was a flood there. The young man says they are under a lake, so it wouldn't be a surprise. Damien points to a place, trembling with fear. There's a golem fallen on the ground before them. Ash is startled. That's not just a pile of scrap. The boss is a level 20 steam giant golem named Bayan. Ash notices the room's name is a human name. First, it was the sewer manager Peleg in District 1. Now there's another boss with a human name. The boss complains that people arrived there and stands up. He looks at the team and says it's time to start the annihilation. He attacks the group. Lucas shouts for Ash to be careful. He steps in front of the Lord and protects him with his sword while Evangeline uses her shield. The shot bounces back and hits the monster. Jupiter notes that he's using magical light, something rare to see these days. And she asks Ash if he can tell them what to do. He was surprised by how big the boss is but knows exactly how to attack him. In fact, there's no monster he doesn't know how to attack in that game. Ash shouts for them not to be scared of his size and to use the same principles they used on all the others. They just need to destroy his mana. But since he is giant, his mana is spread all over his body. Hands, arms, feet, legs, chest, and head. There are 10 mana points. Evangeline is scared. Lucas asks if they need to keep fighting until all 10 are destroyed. Ash says that's what they need to do to finish that boss once and for all. When they destroy his mana, that region will stop moving, so the first targets should be his hands. Jupiter agrees and says she'll go first. Damien says he'll aim for his right hand. The old lady does her job, and Damien too. The monster's hands are destroyed. He approaches. Ash shouts that the next targets are his feet. They need to take away his mobility. Ash calls for Lucas and Evangeline. The boss comments that his back has been hurting a lot these days, probably because he's been sweeping that whole room his entire life. He raises his hand. Ash is shocked that the boss is attacking with his hands. He delivers a blow, making Evangeline and Lucas retreat. The force is substantial, but the movements are very large. Evangeline questions what the monster is mumbling about. She uses damage playback. Lucas says he won't fall behind. Then he attacks the enemy's leg. Both of the monster's legs fall apart. The boss says he would like to enter the royal court once and learn magic. He is sick and tired of cleaning that place like a machine. Ash shouts for Evangeline to fall back and defend, while Jupiter and Damien should aim at his right arm. They blow off the creature's limb. On the ground, the monster says that one day he will develop a cleaning spell and make life easier for his colleagues. Several simultaneous attacks are made. The boss falls to the ground. Lucas approaches. He raises his sword and stabs the monster's chest, destroying his mana. He shouts that he destroyed it and now only the head is left. But the boss starts moving again. He says that's strange. He thought he had already cleaned that area. Ash thinks about that psychopathic monster, shaking his head around. The MC thinks he can dodge as long as he executes his command, but Jupiter and Damien can't. He gets angry, then charges at the monster to punch him. He wants to watch his team level up for him. The slot machine spins. Ash's punch throws the boss far away. The head falls to the ground. Ash was lucky that time, but he was terrified. The head starts making a noise and seems to be losing its life. The boss feels rain falling on him. Lucas asks if Ash wants him to finish off the monster. Killing a boss gives a lot of experience points. Ash climbs onto the monster's head, since his level is the lowest. That is his chance. The boss says it's raining a lot there. Ash asks what that damn beast is talking about and stabs his sword into it. They cleared the boss room of the hidden alley. The group stays there, next to the monster's pieces. Ash not only got the bonus for killing the boss, but also gained experience points for the finishing blow. That will help him with his level.
Guys, that's the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a comment in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Like the video and share it too. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.